Hello, today on my channel you will hear an amazing story about life. I hope you enjoy this story. This one struck me to the core. Honestly, I still can't forget it. Enjoy watching.
The weather outside was damp, a light rain was drizzling down. A strong wind was blowing. In the yard of a dilapidated house, a young girl was washing laundry in a trough with laundry soap. The water had long ago cooled down and her hands were getting tired. When she finished her work, she began to hang the clothes on the ropes. Then she was called by her neighbor, Mrs. Annie. "Hello, Miranda." "Godspeed. I see you've been tidying up since this morning doing the laundry. Good for you. And you've tidied up the yard. I brought you some milk and a couple of raspberry pies I baked myself. Sit down, have a rest, have a snack. You must be tired. You can't be in your condition before labor." The girl was glad to see her visitor and nodded to her. "Hello, Mrs. Annie. Thank you so much. I'd love a treat. Come on in. Why are you so cold?" An old woman came into the house, looked round, complimented her hostess. "You've got a nice place to live. I see you've even washed the curtains." The late Mr. John never dreamed of such cleanliness. He was a lonely man, didn't keep much of an eye on the place, so he neglected the place. "It's a good thing you're here, or some alcoholics would have taken over. They'd be trouble." Miranda was pleased by her neighbor's kind words. She started fussing about, putting the kettle on the stove and looking for brew. During the conversation, Miranda ate pies and treated her neighbor to apples from the abandoned orchard. Mrs. Annie looked at the girl and shook her head. "You're a good girl. You're not lazy. You're a hard worker. Tell me, how did you end up on the street and get pregnant by someone you don't know? You're still a child yourself. Don't you have any relatives? No one to help you. It's going to be hard on the baby." Miranda finished her meal and frowned, shook her head negatively. "I'm an orphan, Mrs. Annie. I grew up in an orphanage. My mom gave me up in the hospital and ran away, so I never even knew a normal family. I had a friend at the orphanage, Alex the Daredevil. He was feared by all the guys. He never gave himself an offense and did not obey anyone. But I was always loved and cared for in a special way. First as a brother, as a friend, and then, in general, we fell in love. It was Alex who encouraged me to run away from the orphanage. He told me so beautifully that there was freedom and real free life behind the iron fence, that we would love each other and travel the world, and no one would scold us and punish us. I was sick of the orphanage myself. I'm used to going everywhere with Alex. Where does he go? Where he goes, I go. So I agreed. And I was 16 then, he was 17. It seemed like we had our whole life ahead of us. But things didn't work out the way Alex promised. Well, we ran away, but we jumped on a train and traveled 1,000 kilometers without a ticket. It seemed so fun and exciting, running away from the controllers and the tracks. That's how we got here. What's next? Nowhere to live, no money. My granddad's friend, Mr. Gary, took us in. I was just a kid then, no job, no papers. So Alex went down the wrong road, started stealing things. Then he was at the market, stealing wallets and phones from passers-by. I didn't know anything for a long time. He lied to me that he went to the market as a part-time worker, unloading a lorry with goods, and I naively believed it. I didn't realize anything for a long time. Eventually, we rented a room. I got a job at a fruit stand selling fruit. I thought we'd always be together. Life seemed to be getting better. The news of my pregnancy shocked both Alex and me. We weren't ready to be parents. I'd only just turned 18. At least I got my passport, although it was a bit of a hassle. I had to lie about losing my birth certificate. We started fighting. I insisted that we get married. The baby needs a father. Alex was pushing me to get an abortion. And then the police came to our house and Alex was rounded up and taken away in front of me. And they searched my room. That's when I found out everything. Even the earrings he gave me were stolen. My fiancé went to jail. He got 5 years, but the owner threw me out of the room. That's how I started to wander. Thanks for letting me live here. It's better than the streets. What do you do now? I don't know. Mrs. Annie, I've regretted running away from the orphanage 100 times. It's just ruined my life. I could have got a place to live as an orphan. And what profession? I'm stupid. That's what I am. The neighbor shook her head, pitying the girl. Yes, you've made a mess of things. What can I say? But you hang on. If you need anything, come in. I'll run, or my grandfather will probably have lost me. After her neighbor had gone, Miranda was upset. Unpleasant memories and gloomy thoughts about the future came back. She got dressed and decided to go to the shop. They were selling food at a discount today. Miranda lingered on the bridge. She leaned her elbows on the railing and looked down. Sometimes she felt so sad and even had bad thoughts. But she did not dare to take such a step and just fell into a daze, looking at the water running below. Suddenly, an expensive car passing by slowed down sharply. A beautiful, expensively dressed lady got out of the car and walked resolutely towards Miranda. The poor girl was even frightened. There was no telling what she had in mind. She might even bully her because of her poor clothes. But the stranger smiled amiably. "Excuse me, are you unwell? I was just passing by and thought you were going to jump. I couldn't help but stop." "Yeah, I was just thinking about it. There's nothing wrong with me. Thank you." The stranger suddenly looked intently at Miranda's slightly protruding belly from underneath her old jumper and suggested, "Look, do you want to earn a large sum of money and do nothing? Well, almost nothing. My name is Brooke, by the way. What's yours?" "I'm Miranda. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not like that. You don't just suddenly get offered money. I don't like this. Although I must admit, I could use every penny right now. You see, I'm pregnant," Miranda said. Brooke began to explain to her patiently. "That's right, you're pregnant. That's exactly what I need. You see, I have a fiancé, a very rich and successful businessman, and we're getting married. And I lied to him about being pregnant. I even put on a belly pad. All delayed with a visit to the doctor, but my fiancé lost patience and demands that I bring him the results of ultrasound and register. And what will I charge him? You see, my deception will be exposed, and then there will be no wedding. William won't forgive me for lying like this. I mean, you and I look exactly alike. Look at our hair color and height and figure. I want you to go to a fee-for-service ultrasound clinic tomorrow instead of me. My fiancé picked it out. You're not risking anything. I'll give you my documents. You'll take the test, get the results, give them back to me. That's the job. And I'll pay you handsomely for it. Do you agree?" Miranda was shocked by what she heard. "Why do you want to do all this? Because sooner or later your fiancé will realize that you're not pregnant. And then what?" Brooke waved away. "What do you care? I'll say I lost the baby, and that's the end of it. I just want him to marry me, and then we'll see. I'll think of something. So what's up? Do you want the money? Or should I look for another candidate near the antenatal clinic?" Miranda hesitated. On the one hand, she knew she was being dragged into something bad, but on the other hand, she was on the edge. There was so much to buy for the baby. So why not go for this madness? Where else could she get a job like this? And the girl nodded. "Okay, I'll do it. Where and what time should I come over tomorrow? And I need an advance. I don't want to be cheated." Brooke laughed. "I see you're not a bad guy. Here you go." Brooke pulled out the money, and that's just the deposit. "You'll get the rest when you give me the results. And now the most important thing is the difference between you and me, you understand? Get in the car, let's go. We need to get you cleaned up. Otherwise they won't accept such simple things in an elite clinic. Our whole plan will fail." Brooke put Miranda in the car and drove her to the spa. There, in a couple of hours, the girl was transformed. She had never felt so blissful from the various masks, facial massages, and pleasant treatments. She got a neat manicure and a haircut like Brooke. And when she walked out of the shop in a beautiful long dress and booties, even the customer was delighted. Nothing reminded her of her past life now. Miranda felt as if she had entered another dimension. She didn't recognize herself in her new appearance. There, now it's in order. The rich woman was pleased. Here's the address. Meet me at the clinic gate tomorrow at 9. I'll give you my papers. That's it. I hope everything will work out. A wedding and a happy, trouble-free life are at stake. Back in her ramshackle house, Miranda felt sad. This is the end of the fairy tale. She slept badly, tossing and turning, nervous. She wondered how it would go tomorrow. What if the doctor suspects something? How would I get out of it? But on the other hand, this is a good opportunity to do a comprehensive examination and learn everything about your baby. A, be what it will be. On the morning of the appointment, Miranda took Brooke's paperwork and walked to the clinic. Everything went smoothly at the front desk. The receptionist didn't ask too many questions and gave her a ticket to the ultrasound room. But when Miranda entered the room, she gasped. There next to the doctor sat some nice, well-groomed middle-aged man. He looked intently at the girl and smiled. "Good afternoon, I'm here for an ultrasound. Brooke Brown is scheduled for 9:30, she said timidly. "That's good. Please come in. Strip down to your waist and lie down on the couch," the doctor replied. "You may keep your shoes on," the doctor said. Miranda was taken aback and was about to ask the stranger to come out, when suddenly the stranger said in a calm voice, "Honey, what are you doing? You're looking at me as if you've seen me for the first time. It's me, William, your fiancé. I wanted to surprise you. I'm here early. I can't wait to see our baby. And I see my surprise has been a success." Miranda felt nervous and realized she was in trouble. She wanted to run away, but the man was ahead of her and closed the door from the inside. Then he grabbed the fake bride firmly by the arm and said sharply, "Now tell me, who are you? And why are you holding my Brooke's ID? What kind of circus is this, anyway?" Miranda became completely confused and cried out in fear. Confused, she explained everything as it happened. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I just needed the money badly. So I agreed. That woman met me by chance. So she offered to go to the ultrasound instead of her. I'm really pregnant, and my fiancé's in prison, and I'm struggling to make ends meet. I live in an abandoned house. Is that how Brooke wanted to tie you down and marry you? I'm so embarrassed. Can I go now? Please let me go." William could see that this poor, confused girl wasn't lying. Brooke must have really worked her over. He replied peacefully, "Wait, since you're here, then have them give you an ultrasound. The appointment is paid for anyway, and I'll at least look at someone else's happiness. And then you can go. You give Brooke what you owe her, and I'll deal with her at home. I won't involve you. After all, it's really not your fault." Miranda exhaled and lay back on the couch. The doctor was running the probe over her abdomen and showing on the screen. "Okay, 18 weeks, you're having a boy. Look, your heart is beating. There are no abnormalities. Amniotities is enough, blood flow is not disturbed. The pregnancy is progressing normally. Everything's fine. So take care of yourself and get ready to be a mummy. All the best to you. I'll give you the report now," the doctor said. Miranda was about to leave at last, but William called out to her again and suddenly suggested, "Listen, Miranda, your money is tight, but come and work for me in the garment factory. I'll find you a simple sit-down job because we're short of people, we're completely swamped. Here's my card. If you think about it, give me a call." The girl did not know how to thank the man and immediately replied, "And there is nothing to think about. I agree. Tomorrow I will come to register. Thank you very much. And again, I'm sorry I agreed to participate in this scam." Miranda ran out of the clinic like a scolded woman. Brooke was waiting for her at the agreed-upon location. She asked her impatiently, "How did it go? Tell me, don't drag it out. Here, take this. I earned the money." Miranda handed over both the documents and the ultrasound report and only hastily replied, "The baby is fine. I don't need any money. I'm going to go. I have to go. Excuse me." Miranda ran without looking back. Her mind was in chaos. She'd done everything right, but she hadn't told Brooke the truth, that her fiancé knew about her lies. How could she tell if the businessman was so kind and offered her a good job? How could she not honor his terms? "Yes, I'm in a bind," thought the girl. It was only at home that she finally breathed freely. Brooke twisted at her temple. What a crazy woman, living poor, and she didn't take the money. That's it. Now I have irrefutable proof that I'm pregnant. William will be delighted, and the wedding will be soon. She flew home as if on wings and was surprised that the groom was already home. He was usually at work at this hour. The woman immediately decided to share the news and with a solemn look handed him the ultrasound result. "Honey, I've been to the doctor. Look at this, the baby is fine. 18 weeks, so we can't wait to get married, or I won't be able to fit into any dress soon. What happened to your face? Aren't you happy?" she asked. William suddenly seized her wrists, gave her a painful squeeze, and at the same time shouted, "Well, you're a cunt, Brooke. Do you take me for a fool at all? Do you want me to tell you whose ultrasound result this is? Miranda Morris. I was really surprised to see her in the doctor's office with your paperwork." He, taking off his jumper, continued, "I even wonder how you faked a pregnancy." And he ripped the clothes off the bewildered bride with force and saw the false belly. The man grabbed his head and screamed, "Ugh, what an abomination. Why? Tell me, why did you set all this up? Why did you drag a stranger into your play? What did you want? And then what? Would you get someone else's child or something? Answer me something. I want to understand how your sick brain came up with this crazy idea. Are you crazy?" Brooke sobbed and tried to justify herself. "Well, I'm sorry, honey, please. Yes, I lied to you about being pregnant. I mean, we had a big fight back then, and I was so scared that I would lose you forever. But then I didn't know how to tell you the truth. I love you, William, and I want to be your wife." The man was shocked. He clenched his fists and went at Brooke. "Get out of my house immediately and take your junk with you. You're a monster, Brooke, and you and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. I don't want a wife who lies and tries to tie me down with a false pregnancy. It's unbelievable. I don't want to know you anymore. I mean, what kind of family do you have? And you grow up to be such a bitch." Brooke was frantically packing and getting angry. "You're such a bitch, Miranda, because you knew I'd get in trouble at home and you didn't say anything. That's why you didn't take the money. Wait a minute, you beggar. My tears will be poured out for you. I'll give you a life you'll regret." William and Brooke broke up. The man did not want to hear about reconciliation, and the bride canceled the wedding. Miranda went to her new job. The shop was bright and clean. The team was good. She was welcomed with friendliness, sat down to punch buttons. The work was sedentary and not difficult. The girl liked everything. She was happy that before giving birth she would be able to earn money for everything needed for the baby. She wasn't so scared now. William looked at the new employee, asked the foreman about her work, and was satisfied. He had taken her for a reason. The girl turned out to be diligent and hardworking. She fulfilled the plan. She was praised. A month passed. Miranda was no longer sad. Life slowly got better. Now the girl had money for clothes and food. One day she came home from work and saw a terrible picture. Her dilapidated house had burned to the ground. Neighbors were standing around. A fire engine was dousing the fire. Miranda squeezed her eyes shut. She couldn't believe that now she had no place to live again. All her belongings were burned. At least she had her passport with her. Her neighbor, Mrs. Annie, wailed. "What misery in this village. It attracts bad luck to itself. How can it be? Why should I be surprised? It's an old house. Maybe the wiring shorted out. How are you going to go back to the streets? Let's go to my place. You can't go outside, and the nights are cold. Come to my place, you'll spend the night, and then we'll see. Where would you go with a belly?" Miranda cried inconsolably. Once again her life was ruined. She wandered after the old woman. She fed her and put her on a cot. The girl heard Mrs. Annie's husband swearing softly. "Have you gone mad, Annie? Why did you bring that pregnant girl here? Is she going to live here now? It's probably her own fault the house burned down. Why do we need her problems? We don't have much money and a lot of illnesses ourselves. She can stay the night and then she can go. She can make her own way." Mrs. Annie shouted at her husband. "Oh, be quiet. Don't shout. She'll hear you. I feel sorry for Miranda. She's a good girl. We won't be poor for a bowl of soup." The guest cried quietly. She did not know how to go on living, and she could not sit on the neighbors' necks for long. The next day, Miranda was not herself at work. Tears were choking her, and she shared her grief with one of her co-workers. Everyone sympathized with her, and the news that the new girl's house had burned to the ground reached William a couple of days later. He immediately summoned Miranda to his house. The frightened girl timidly entered the principal's office and stared at him bewildered. William started the conversation. "Miranda, why didn't you tell me at once what trouble you were in? That you have no place to live, that you're wandering around in the neighborhood. You're in your condition. You can't wander anymore. I don't think about yourself, think about the baby. So I'm taking you on as a patron. You'll live in my mansion. Don't think anything bad, I won't lay a finger on you. I just want to help you as a human being. So get ready, finish your shift and we'll go. I'll put you up on the first floor. It's a cozy room there." The girl looked dumbfounded at the principal. "William, this isn't a joke. But why do you need all this? I've got everything burnt down, haven't I? One passport in my pocket is all that's left. I'm nothing to you. I'm ashamed to sit on your neck. It's uncomfortable for me." The man frowned. "Well, for one thing, you were the one who helped me open my eyes to the lying bride, so we are no longer strangers. Secondly, you're expecting a child, and I can't just pass by your distress. Things will work out, you'll see. I didn't become an entrepreneur right away, either. I came up from the bottom. And on my way, there were also good people who were kind to me and helped me in many ways. So I just want to help you. That's all." Miranda cried and didn't know how to thank the principal. "William, you're just saving me right now. I was already desperate, to be honest, and I still don't understand how or why the house burned down. I was going to work. Everything was fine. I came to the ashes. Can I help you with the chores or in the kitchen? It'll be easier for me. Thank you. You don't meet such kind people nowadays," Miranda said. William took Miranda to his house, put her up, bought her some clothes and treated her as a friend without any subtext. He himself did not understand why this poor girl had touched him so much. After all, he hadn't been so sensitive before. All career, business, the cycle of events. But suddenly he saw people barely making ends meet. And for some reason he wanted to help Miranda. The girl was at a loss, exhausted. She might do something terrible or disappear into the street. She was still young, still had a lot to live for. And Miranda reminded him a lot of his dead sister. Probably. That's why her fate touched his soul so much. William was not lazy and learned from the fire expert about the causes of the fire in the house where Miranda lived. And he was shocked, he said, most likely arson. And then the man was struck with a terrible hunch. What if Brooke was getting back at Miranda? I mean, she'd been cursing her as she left. And now she's periodically stalking him, hoping that something else might work out between them. Brooke was sitting at the bar at the same time, nervously finishing her third glass of cocktail. There was a restlessness in her soul. She had never been able to accept defeat. No one had ever left her like this before. So what if I lied a little to speed up the wedding? So now what? Everything's fallen apart because of it. But instead of blaming herself, Brooke was angry at Miranda. She couldn't forgive her for keeping silent. She thought that girl was the one who had ruined everything. Some random suitor was sitting across from her, showering her with compliments, but it only annoyed the woman. And then her mobile phone rang. "Good evening, Brooke. This is your fiance's accountant, Terry. I've got some news I wanted to tell you. I nearly fell out of my chair when I heard it. We got a new girl here, Miranda, orphan, works in the sewing room. Anyway, her house burned down. So our director put her up with him today," the woman said into the receiver. "Who told you that? I won't say, but the information is correct. We're all shocked. The girl is poor as a church mouse, and she's pregnant." Brooke even turned white with anger, pressed her lips together and thought, "Look at her, what a bitch. Pretending to be a sheep, crying, and then sneaking into William's house. She probably jumped into bed, even though she was pregnant. But I'm not going to let it go. And William's good too. So some foreign girl is now worth more to him than a proper bride. Who the hell does he think he is? We've got to do something and get this imposter out of here. I'll do my best, but I'll get it done." Meanwhile, Miranda was settling into William's mansion. She was not used to such luxury at first. The guest tried to be useful, helping the cook, cleaning. She also took an interest in embroidery and prepared a gift for her benefactor. She decided to embroider his portrait with beads. Pregnancy proceeded normally, and in due time Miranda gave birth to a son, Justin. William was so happy, took her from the hospital, bought everything necessary for the baby, and often came to the girl's room to admire the baby. The man wanted children very much, but his personal life was not going well, and this desire was postponed for later. William furtively watched Miranda, saw how much she loved her son and cared for him, and sighed to himself. Deep down, he liked Miranda very much. They talked a lot now, but both of them were afraid to talk about the most important thing, their feelings. "You and I are alike, Miranda," William once said. "I too was brought up in an orphanage until I was 10. I don't know anything about my parents. I had a little sister, Betty, and you look a lot like her. But the little one died. She was born with a weak heart. That grief really got to me, and I withdrew. I didn't talk to anyone. But I was lucky. I was adopted by an older woman, our carer. It just sort of worked itself out." William continued to talk about his life. "At first, Mrs. Charlotte would just take me to her house at weekends. I was drawn to her because she was kind and gentle and gave me the warmth I was missing. And one day I said to her, 'Aunt Charlotte, can I call you Mum? Don't leave me, okay?' She cried, held me close, and we never parted again. When I started living with my foster mum, everything in my life got better. I finished school with a medal. My mum helped me to study at university. She always protected me. I still remember her with love. After university, I decided to go into commerce. I started with small trade. It was hard, but little by little I saved money and opened a mini atelier. At first, there were only 3 workers, and those Mum's female acquaintances, and old sewing machines. But gradually the business went on. Now I have my own sewing factory. But my mum passed away 5 years ago. She had asthma. I hardly survived the loss. I couldn't live in our flat with her. Everything reminded me of her. I sold everything and bought this mansion. I'm working. I'm trying. You see, it's important that someone believes in you and loves you unconditionally. Mum was that person, and I still miss her." Miranda exhaled. "Lucky you, William. No one ever really loved me. I was like that to everyone, never wanted me. I loved Alex very much, and I thought he loved me too. I guess I love Justin the most. It makes me feel good. And I'm so grateful to you guys. No one's ever done so much good for me. You are a very good person and a man of prominence, really, and you will definitely find your happiness. I sincerely wish you that," Miranda said. The man objected. "Why do you keep shouting at me? I'm only 8 years older than you. I'm not an old man yet. Let's use the first name because it's a bit strange. We live in the same house. We're not strangers." "Thank you for your kind words, Miranda. It's my pleasure, but you should know that if you need help or just to talk, I'm always here for you. I think I'm the kind of person who will love you just the way my mom used to love me." 6 months passed. Justin was growing up, and Miranda started taking home orders for part-time work. She didn't want to be a burden. Old hardships and sorrows were slowly being forgotten. Miranda even blossomed and cheered up. The iron gates of the prison opened, and the tall guard bellowed, "Alex Willis, free to go. I hope prison has taught you something, and you won't come back to us." Alex nodded and strode to the bus stop. He carried an old traveling bag on his shoulder, and in his pocket he had a criminal record and some money he'd earned in prison. Where to go? What to do next? Alex didn't know, and that scared him. Sitting in prison, the guy often remembered Miranda, thought how she was, what was wrong with her. Where was she now? Had she given birth or not? After all, she has no one but him. Prison really sobered the guy up. Burnt convicts, horrible food, hard labor. Alex regretted many times that he had stolen and was determined not to come back here ever again. He stood at the bus stop and looked at the buses passing by, thinking, where to start, where to go. And then a cool car pulled up and a blonde woman of incredible beauty opened her window. "Are you Alex Willis?" Uh, that's right. Why? Get in, I was just on my way to see you. I have some important business to attend to. The guy even whistled. He was lucky to have such a lady paying attention to him. I wonder what she wanted from him. The man sat down in the salon. It was warm and comfortable, smelling of perfume. The stranger held out a graceful hand with a chic manicure and introduced herself. My name is Brooke, although you don't need to know my name. You don't know me, Alex. And I don't really want to hang out with you either, to be honest. But you and I have something in common, so we're going to have to work together temporarily. Question number 1. Do you know Miranda? You two have a child together, if I'm not mistaken. You miss her, don't you? Do you want to see her? Alex's eyes immediately lit up. Of course I want to see Miranda. She's my first love. She and I have been together since we were kids. But when I went to jail, she was pregnant. That's true. Do you know anything about her? Where can I find her? Brooke smiled predatorily. You bet I do. Your Miranda is my rich fiance's fiancée and now lives in his mansion, and she forgot all about you. How's that for news like that? Do you think it's fair? Surely she didn't visit you in prison? The boy soured and mumbled. I did bad things to her too. I talked her into an abortion myself. I didn't want that baby. And when I went to jail, she was left on the street without a penny. So if she found happiness with someone else, it's probably better that way. The cunning woman didn't give up and continued to press. Hey, you sissy, is it possible to give up your happiness? One must fight for one's love. Personally, I'm not going to give your Miranda my William. Alex, that's ridiculous. What can I offer her? I'm a convict without a penny. No property, no place to live. Where am I going to bring her and the baby? What will we live on? I still love her. But she began to tell him. Well, here we come to the point. That's what my offer is. Look, I'll rent you a flat, pay for 6 months in advance, and I'll throw the same amount of money for life until you get on your feet. And in return, you do whatever you want, but get Miranda out of my fiance's house. And then it's up to me how I make up with him. I see. Alex jumped with joy. What an offer. All problems are solved at once. Of course he agreed, and they hit it off. The same day, Brooke rented a cheap one-bedroom on the outskirts of the city, bought a couple of decent things, and he went to William's house a couple of days later. Miranda was just walking with her son in the yard. The toddler was minding his own business, and she was showing him toys. When the doorbell rang, Miranda thought of the delivery man. William had warned her in the morning. But when the woman saw Alex on the doorstep, she just gasped and recoiled. Alex, they let you out, didn't they? You were given 5 years. Why did you come here? How did you even know where I live? The boy admired Miranda. She'd gotten so much prettier in that time. Pregnancy and childbirth had done her good. She'd put on a little weight, and there was a blush on her cheeks. Everything stirred in his soul, and love flared up with renewed vigor. He answered, Hello, my love. I got out on parole, under amnesty. I think about you all the time. I miss you so much. Let me at least give you a hug. Why are you standing there like a stranger? The guy hugged the girl and kissed her passionately. Miranda immediately collapsed in his arms. Everything swam in front of her eyes. She still loved her Alex. Her son in the pram started to cry, and that sobered the woman. She immediately pushed the boy, sharply told him, Easy, Alex, I'm nothing to you. You never married me, and you didn't want a son either. You've been stealing and hiding. Go away, please. We have different paths now, you understand. I want a normal family, a man to be a protector, a strong shoulder. And what about you? The guy got angry. So it's true. You're sleeping with him. Yeah, with that man who took you in. Here he is, so he's your strong shoulder. What about our love? I mean, we dreamed we'd be together forever. Miranda, I love you. Think about it. Believe me, I've changed. There's no going back. I've got a flat, I've got money. Let's try to start over again. I'm begging you. I need you, sweetheart. Let me at least see my son. Don't drive me away. Miranda reluctantly led him into the pram. tears dripping from her eyes. How little Justin looked like Alex, with his ears and potato nose. She said quietly, "I haven't cheated on you, Alex, ever. And it really hurts me that you think that about me and listen to other people's gossip. William is a wonderful man. I've never met anyone like him. I'm very grateful to him for everything, and I'm not coming back to you. I'm sorry." Alex left with nothing. Brooke was already waiting for him in the courtyard of his new flat and immediately started asking him questions. "So, did you convince your fiancée? When is she moving in?" "No, she won't. I showed her my son. He's a carbon copy of me. He's mine." She melted right away, but then she suddenly got stubborn. She said she didn't believe me anymore. She asked me where I got the money from. She probably thinks I'm stealing again. When I saw Miranda, I was lost. I can't be without her. She's mine, full stop. What am I supposed to do now? Brooke was nervous. "Okay, you need to get a good job right away so she'll trust you. I've got a place I've got in mind, a car repair shop not far from here. They'll take you even with a criminal record. I'll make a deal, you work for a week, then go back to her. Beg, tell her you love your son. If you don't fulfill your conditions, you'll be out of this flat and you won't get any more money. So get a move on, you Romeo." Brooke did help him get a job. Unofficially, but the pay was generous. The guy was getting tired from the job, hands black with dirt. The work was tedious and uninteresting, and he was used to getting paid in other ways. But for Miranda's sake, he was willing to put up with it. He wanted her back so badly. He was obsessed with the idea. A week later, Alex came to Miranda's house again, with a bouquet of daisies. She had loved them since childhood, and a bag of toys for her son. Miranda was surly. "Come on, Alex. I told you not to come here. This is a punishment. Hear me? I'm not coming back. I'm sorry. I've got to get back to the house. Justin will wake up soon, and he'll be scared some more." The boy became furious and threw the bouquet against the ground, yelling, "Also, but if you don't want to see me, I have a right to see my son. Let go. Where's Justin?" "You shouldn't do that, Miranda. I work at a car service now. I don't steal, and I love you very much. So you're just looking for money and a daddy." Miranda started to argue, too. Alex pushed her away and tried to get in. William came out to the noise. He was aware that Miranda's ex-boyfriend was out of jail. The woman complained that she didn't want to go back to her old life. She couldn't dissuade Alex. The man shouted, "What's going on here? Young man, get out of here. Miranda, go inside and don't be afraid of anything. I'll be right there." Alex flared up. "Why are you meddling in our life, uncle? Are you interested in young girls? Miranda is my fiancée. We were made for each other, all right. And Justin is my son, and you're standing in my way." William was a man of manners and restraint and calmly replied, "Look, young man, I don't have a relationship with Miranda, if that's what you mean, and I don't enslave her. She can leave the house at any time. But after all, she doesn't want to see you. So go away and don't scandalize, or you'll get yourself into trouble." Alex perked up. Are you threatening me or something?" William frowned. "Just giving you a warning for now. But if you don't understand nicely, I'll have to explain more clearly. Now goodbye." William slammed the door shut and went inside. Alex walked away. He was angry and hated this rich man who stole Miranda from him. But as soon as he rounded the corner, the light faded and there was a lingering darkness. Miranda hadn't been herself all night. After her conversation with Alex, a part of her was still in love with him. But in her mind, she knew that if they came back together, everything would be the same as it had been before: anxiety, uncertainty. And William was frowning, not himself. The woman had bathed the baby and was just putting him to bed when the doorbell rang again. I wish it wasn't Alex, Miranda thought with horror. But 2 policemen entered the house, introduced themselves, and dumbfounded everyone. "Citizen William, you are being held on suspicion of an attempt on the life of Citizen Alex Willis. He's currently in intensive care in a coma. Your neighbor saw you threatening him with violence, and half an hour later he was found around the corner, with a severe head injury. Get dressed, come with us. William was shocked. Miranda, it wasn't me, I swear. We just talked, that's all. Trust me, it will all be cleared up soon, and I'll be released. This is some kind of monstrous misunderstanding. The woman wept and could not believe what she was hearing. William was taken away, and she began to collate the facts. William had been gone for exactly 10 minutes after his meeting with Alex, and then he'd been frowning all evening, not saying a word. What if it really was him? Poor Alex. What if he dies? William would be locked up for a long time. I'm a disaster for people, Miranda thought to herself. The next day, she went to check on Alex at the hospital. She was not allowed into the intensive care unit, but was told that his condition was stable and that she would call him if he got better. The girl was only allowed to look at him through the glass. The sight was horrible. A pile of twisted wiring, life support system connected. The boy was as helpless and miserable as he had been when he fell off the high swing in the orphanage yard as a child. Memories came flooding back to Miranda. She cried. She hadn't forgotten William either. She was terribly ashamed that her personal problems had landed him in such trouble. She scraped together all the savings she'd managed to save in 6 months and hired a lawyer. She prayed that William wasn't the attacker, though she wasn't entirely sure. Brooke rejoiced. Her plan had worked. Everything had worked out perfectly. The cunning woman, having learnt that William was in the detention center and Alex in intensive care, and even in a coma, began the most important thing. She brazenly showed up at William's mansion and started kicking Miranda and the baby out. Well, darling, here we are face to face. You're a nobody here, so get out of here. I'm giving you 12 hours to get the hell out of here. Otherwise, I'll get your father involved, and you'll have to explain why you're living in someone else's house without registration, Brooke said. Miranda was taken aback. So you're nobody to William either. Why are you bossing me around? Or do you feel like you own the place? With the landlord in trouble, Brooke had gone wild. Her eyes burned with mad fire. She swung the porcelain vase and shouted, "Oh, you're talking like that? Have you got the courage to speak? I will destroy you and your offspring." She grabbed Justin. He got scared and started crying. Miranda was scared to death for her son and begged, "I'll leave right now. Stop it. Give me the baby, please." Brooke laughed. "That's better. And remember, you show up in this house again, or anywhere near William at all, something bad will happen to your baby. I will not leave you alone. If your Alex wakes up, go to him and live happily ever after. And forget about William. He's not your hero. He's mine. He just hasn't realized it yet." Miranda nodded her head and agreed with everything, just as long as she didn't piss off a more distraught Brooke. She packed up the baby, grabbed her suitcase, and left. She used the last of her money to rent a small room. But what to do next? She didn't know. She didn't want to go back to Alex. Everything inside burned out, and there was no more that love, only bitter residue and disappointment. Now, having become closer to William, Miranda realized that this was exactly what a real man should be: decent, able to solve problems, not create them. Such a man would not lie, dodge, promise something he could not fulfill. She was very worried about William and didn't know how else to help him get out of prison. He didn't deserve this. He was only trying to protect her. A week passed. The hospital called to say that Alex had regained consciousness and had been moved to the general ward. The woman immediately grabbed her son and rushed there. Alex was overjoyed and shone. "Beloved, you came to see me. Thank you. Give me Justin. Please, my darling son, don't cry. It's me, your daddy." Miranda asked sharply. "Alex, tell me honestly who attacked you." "I don't believe it was William. He couldn't have done that." The boy didn't bother to lie. "That Brooke is a real bitch. She heard all about you chasing me away again, and as soon as I rounded the corner, she slapped me. She's a sick, crazy person. Alex, you have to tell the police the whole truth. It wasn't William's fault. I'm the reason he got hurt. Let Brooke answer for everything." Alex immediately took stock of what was being said and gave it out. "I agree, but only on one condition. We'll live together again, get married. I want a family, a son to raise." to love. I'm different now, Miranda. Trust me. And if you refuse again, William will be in trouble with the law. So choose. We've been together since we were kids. I don't want anyone but you. Honey, yes, I made a mistake. I took a wrong turn. But prison fixed me. No more criminal behavior, I swear. I don't think you're taking his father away from him. We're one, Miranda. And the sooner you realize that, the better. The woman knew it was blackmail. But she couldn't leave William in distress. She had no right, and for his sake she agreed to be with Alex, even though she knew in her heart that they were no longer one. Their tender youthful love and friendship were long past, and nothing good would come of it. But a deal's a deal. Miranda moved into Alex's rented flat. William was released and Brooke was taken into custody. At first Alex really tried. He went to work at the car service, tired, tried to babysit Justin, and tried to get close to Miranda again. But for her, it was torture. She no longer felt anything for her fiancé, and every night she wished that morning would come sooner. As soon as Alex went to work, her soul was torn back to William. The girl was absolutely miserable. Now William came home. The maid told him about Brooke kicking Miranda out. The man was very angry. It was beyond the limit. He started calling immediately. Miranda, thank you for the lawyer, for worrying about me. I'm really touched, honestly. Brooke did a terrible thing. She had no right to kick you out. Where are you now? Let me come over. Come back. I never thought I'd miss you and Justin so much. The house is empty without you. Miranda's heart hammered frequently. She had finally heard such a long-awaited confession. If only she could, she would immediately run back to the place where she felt so good and safe, where she was cared for and loved. And quietly she answered, swallowing her tears. I'm sorry, William, but I can't go back. I've reconciled with Alex. We've already applied for the registry office. The wedding is in a month. I'm the one who should be apologizing to you. I'm the one who got you into this mess in the first place. And I also want you to know that you are the best man in the world. I've never met anyone like you. Who's calling? Who are you so in love with? Alex shouted. What am I missing? Miranda startled and immediately pressed the call's reset button. A short beep went off. The guy freaked out and squeezed her hand painfully. For this to be the first and last time. Get that businessman out of your head. He helped you, and that's fine. Or have you forgotten our deal? I'm Justin's father and your future husband, okay? Miranda startled and cried. Alex had never spoken to her like that before, never yelled at her. Now he was getting tough, completely changed. The guy realized that he had overstepped his bounds and immediately started hugging and kissing the girl, asking for forgiveness. Forgive me, darling, I'm just very jealous of you because I love you. You are only my girl. Do you hear? I won't give you to anyone. Come to me, sweetheart. Alex began to cover his bride's neck with kisses, and she endured, her tears choking her. Luckily, Justin became cranky and cried loudly, calling for his mom. The woman immediately pushed Alex away and went to the child. William, on the other hand, immediately understood everything after the call. From her intonation, she had such a murdered, doomed voice, he thought. Hey, girl. What mistake are you making again? Your Alex won't change and everything will go round again, stealing and lying. You're a mess. But I have no right to interfere. It's your decision, even if it's wrong. What's wrong with me? Why did I think about Miranda day and night, even in prison? Why do I still run to the nursery and want to cry at the empty baby's lullaby? I've never been that sensitive, have I? I think I've truly fallen in love. What to do with all this now? In the meantime, the young couple's relationship had fallen apart. Alex started to disappear again at night. He said it was an urgent order, car repairs. But Miranda didn't believe him anymore, and he started to bring a lot of money. She should be happy, but she remembered all too well how it had ended. Last time she had tried to talk frankly with her fiancé. Well, why did you order such an expensive restaurant? Why this glamour and show? We still have no home, no car, and you are wasting such money. You didn't even ask my opinion. Where did you get all that money from? Aren't you afraid? Tell me honestly, you haven't started doing something illegal again, have you? The boy's eyes flickered. He too hastily, cheerfully replied, I don't make up nonsense and don't get yourself worked up. You like to complicate things without thinking about anything. Relax. Or rather, think about pleasant things. We'll buy you the prettiest dress and choose the rings together, all for you. And the money? Come on, it's just paper. What's there to spare? Alex still avoided a direct answer and hurriedly turned the conversation to another topic. But Miranda's heart was uneasy. She knew that look and demeanor of his too well. He sounded insincere. The woman decided to secretly call the mysterious car service, in which allegedly her flatmate works day and night. She politely asked, Good afternoon. Could you put Alex on the phone, please? I really need it. But she was stunned. He doesn't work here. He quit 3 months ago, so I can't help you. Miranda was stunned. Everything inside her suddenly turned upside down. She sat down in the chair and cried bitterly. The wedding was already a week away. It turned out that Alex was doing something secret again. How annoying. He wouldn't tell the truth. Even if you tortured him, he would lie until the end. Miranda sobbed and thought, Where am I going? I'm putting my head in the noose. But what kind of family is he? He's already in trouble. Where did he get the money from? God, I'm so fed up. Why did I get involved with him in the first place? I have to drag my son into all this, Miranda thought. Alex had changed so much since prison. He had some outbursts of aggression. And he'd already played with the son. Now if he cries, if he has a fever, if he's teething, all the problems only annoy him. Raising the child is hard work. And Alex isn't ready for it. Shouting to the whole world that he is a father and actually being one, it turned out to be different things. And Justin senses his nervousness and doesn't want to play with him for long. It just doesn't seem to be working out. There's no happiness in their family, that's all. How about I drop everything and run away before it's too late? But I'd be setting William up. Alex won't forgive me and he'll take revenge. What a mess I've gotten myself into, she pondered. Whatever happens. William didn't waste any time either. He realized for himself that he wanted to tie his life only with Miranda and decided to make a decisive move, as in chess. But so that everything would be clear. The deciding day arrived. From the morning, Miranda got up in a bad mood. She had nightmares and a headache. She reluctantly went to make herself pretty and dressed. 2 hours later, she looked gorgeous. A long snow-white dress with a train, beautifully intricate hair and delicate makeup. Little Justin was dressed up too. He was so funny in a baby suit with a boatie. The groom arrived, rented a limousine, and they went to the registry office. All the way Alex was shining with happiness and told everything about where they would go on holiday after the wedding and how they would live in prosperity. And Miranda was getting more and more scared. She saw the groom cheats and is not ashamed, and she wondered where he'd gotten himself into this time, and when will he be caught? The important lady was broadcasting loudly. Is your desire to marry free, sincere and reciprocal in good faith? Do you enter into marriage? Please answer, you groom. Alex, without hesitation, shouted, Yes. Miranda, on the other hand, wanted to shout, No, I don't want to marry that man. But she had a lump in her throat and quietly replied, Yes. It was time to seal the marriage with signatures. And then the unbelievable happened. The door of the wedding hall swung open and William flew in like a bullet. He literally pushed the registrar aside and said into the microphone, Miranda, sweetheart, stop. You're making a huge mistake. Your fiancé has gone back to crime. He recently robbed a big official. He was repairing his car in a car service and found a bank card in the salon. And while the official came to his senses, Alex managed to transfer a huge sum to other accounts. Not by himself, of course. He was helped by cyber criminals. The trio were fully confident they wouldn't be exposed, but the police figured it all out. And now your fiancé is going to go to jail again, this time for a long time. Alex jerked and tried to run, but the police were waiting for him outside the registry office and led him straight to the police station. Miranda ran after him, caught up with him, pulled off his veil, threw the ring in his face and shouted, It's over between us. Don't ever come into my life again. and I won't let you anywhere near my son. You lied to me again. There's no fixing you." Alex shouted in his heart as well. "Go back to your rich man. You have a crush on him, don't you? Did you think I didn't notice anything? Advice and love. I did it all for you. And you." The guests dispersed. Very different people entered the hall. Miranda was sitting on the steps of the registry office, holding her little son in her arms and crying bitterly. Everything seemed to be right. The truth had been revealed. Alex the deceiver had been exposed, and now she wouldn't have to marry someone she didn't love. But for some reason it was so hard on her soul. Everything wasn't like normal people. Everything was going wrong. And then William in an expensive suit sat down next to her on the steps and quietly said, "I love you, Miranda. But I only realized it when I was released from prison. I walked around the empty house and couldn't find a place to be. I miss your slightly sad but beautiful eyes, your laugh, your smile. I'm sitting in the nursery like crazy, staring at Justin's empty cot. I hold his bunny in my arms and realize how much I want to hug you both. I know Alex is your first love, and you probably still have feelings for him." Miranda couldn't believe her ears. She threw herself into William's arms and rambled on. No, you've got it all wrong. Alex was blackmailing me. He said if I didn't agree to marry him, he wouldn't tell the truth to the police, and you wouldn't get out of jail. How could I ruin your life? So I did. But every day with Alex was torture. I walked to that wedding like it was an execution. I couldn't walk. I love you too, honestly. I only realized that when I started living with Alex. I kept comparing him to you, you know. I'd hug him, and I'd think about you. And I was dying to know that you and I were never going to be together. Why would you want a messed up, troubled wife like me? I, in my opinion, like a magnet to myself, misfortune and misfortune attracts. Then the wrong guy met. Then the house suddenly burned to the ground. Then you suffered because of me. With my fiancé broke up. I am already afraid of myself." William hugged her and Justin too and replied, "My silly girl, you're not the problem at all. It was Brooke who set the house on fire. She confessed in court. It had nothing to do with you at all. That poor woman is possessed and needs to be treated. Alex was just a cleverly manipulative manipulator. That's all. Your whole problem is that you had the wrong man around. The wrong man, you know. I'm going to make sure you never cry again. Justin's like family to me now. I'm going to give him my last name, and you're going to be my wife. We're going to be fine, you hear me? I believe it." Those were the most eagerly awaited words. Miranda was perfectly happy at that moment. The three of them sat hugging each other like that. Even Justin was quiet, as if he realized the importance of the moment. The newlyweds coming out of the registry office, seeing this strange couple, suddenly jokingly shouted, "Bitter!" And all the guests immediately picked up and clapped. And Miranda and William kissed passionately. It was so touching and so exciting. Alex was back in jail. He was angry with Miranda and the world. He felt betrayed by everyone, unappreciative of his efforts. He deliberately got into fights and confrontations in his cell, as if he were playing with death. And finally one day he was fatally stabbed with a shiv. That's how Alex's life ended, so stupidly and so ridiculously. It was as if his whole life was a struggle between good and evil, and he didn't know whether to choose the light or the dark side. Her father had helped Brooke get out of prison and had taken her away from the city to a foreign country. Now the woman was undergoing a long course of psychological rehabilitation and treatment. The specialist explained to her little by little that you can't force a person to fall in love or fall out of love. In time she came to her senses and stopped dwelling on her worries and delusions of revenge. And then she met a good man and learned to build honest relationships without lies and blackmail. Miranda and William married, raised a son, and dreamed of a daughter. They lived in perfect harmony, and that ultrasound result was carefully kept in their safe as a memory of how they met. There are many other things in life. Pitiful technician's daughter. You'll never get out of the mud, laughed her classmates. And 15 years later, Carolina sat at the railway station on her day off and looked hopefully at the people passing by her. On a small table in front of the girl were laid out a variety of papier-mâché figures, very skillful, and hand-colored with acrylic paints, small animals, birds, scenes from children's fairy tales. All this regularly attracted the attention of potential buyers. Except that, having learnt the price, they immediately turned away sullenly with the words, "Why is it so expensive? My Thomas can make such nonsense in a couple of minutes, and paint it even faster. What's all this money for?" Caroline only pressed her lips together in embarrassment. She was asking for nothing. But the inhabitants of their provincial town, who were used to saving money on almost everything, did not want to pay for the labor of her invalid father, even if she was also thrown into the mud every time. "What kind of an exclusive you have that you ask so much?" Caroline tried to sell figurines at the railway station in the hope that some of the capital's tourists would be able to appreciate these creations. But she was quickly kicked out. She was told to pay a percentage or get out. Carolina wouldn't have minded paying for her workplace, but the amount the racketeers told her was a mockery 10,000 a day. "Where am I going to get that kind of money?" she asked the big man in the tracksuit, who was not shy of smoking a stinking cigarette in front of her. "In a month, God willing, I'll be able to earn at least half of that." The burly man exhaled the acrid smoke into the girl's face with relish, then smiled wryly. "Well, it's what you wanted, baby. This is big business, by the way. If you want, you can always pay for the place in kind." The man gave the girl a steely stare that made Caroline want to wash herself at once. "Don't," she muttered grimly, lowering her gaze. "I'll pack everything up and go now, then." The bully hummed disappointedly. Caroline shook her head negatively. "Like, we could make a deal." The creep held out his big tobacco-smelling hand to Caroline. However, the girl staggered sharply to the side, warningly. "I'm going to scream or call the police for help. Just try to touch me." The jock lowered his hand, and for a second it hovered in the air a centimeter from her face. Then he grinned and said playfully, "And you're not stupid at all, and you're beautiful. You shouldn't want to join our company. You should buy yourself some clothes. You walk around like a bum in your last rags." "I don't mess with bandits," the girl answered him in a serious tone and began to put her rustic luggage into a small sports bag given to her by her father. She was about to leave the platform when the bandit suddenly blocked her way with his massive torso. He looked down at her like she was a bug and smiled nastily at her. "Let me through," the girl mumbled without looking at him. The boogeyman in reply bent closer to her and in a low voice said threateningly, "You think properly, Caroline," he exhaled along with another puff of smoke. "Her name. You'd be better off with me, and it's in your best interest. You're almost out of high school. Where do you go from here? Do you know the connections I have in this town? If I say the word, no one will hire you. Not even as a cleaner. So you won't be able to continue your mum's career. I'll take care of that." "There's already someone to take care of me," replied the girl, boldly looking the scoundrel in the eye. "I said I won't come here again. Let me pass. Or I'll really call the police now." "Is this about your daddy, or what?" The man grinned and gave a bullhorn with the toe of his trainers. "He won't help you, if anything. And the police here think they all work for me." The thug looked around and added briefly, "Anyway, I've told you everything. Don't you say anything to him, and don't you pawn me off." Carolina, who turned 17 earlier this year, did look a little older than her age trim thanks to daily jogging and her technician mother's help cleaning the shops. And at the same time, slim as a graceful rose, she was admired by almost all the boys at school. However, because of the low social status of her family, no one, except for such criminals as this big guy was he himself looked no more than 20, did not consider the girl as a love interest. Caroline herself never looked for romantic adventures and devoted all her free time exclusively to helping her parents. But even if this scoundrel had suddenly turned out to be the last man on earth, she would never have agreed to be his date. The girl saw a couple of times as near the only nightclub in their town, gangsters like him left in the arms of young, disappointed, dressed in short skirts. Caroline didn't have to guess who they were. She was old enough to realize how complicated real life was. But even in her worst dream, the girl couldn't imagine such a shameful future awaiting her. "I'll give you a sweet life in this little town. "Don't doubt it," said the scoundrel. Standing before this unpleasant force, Caroline began to feel herself slowly but surely overcome by fear. After all, she was all alone in the station, and there was no one to protect her. Fortunately, at that moment, the villain's mobile phone rang, and Caroline, taking advantage of the fact that he was distracted, hurriedly slipped out of the bandit's sight. She returned home that day depressed and penniless. It was the last Sunday in May, which meant that she had the longest and most horrible week before graduation ahead of her. All her classmates would only talk about who and what dress to wear, and what hairstyle and manicure to choose for this important holiday. And guys will try as soon as possible to invite the prettiest girls of the school to the ball. And only Caroline, of course, no one will be invited to spend time at the last school party in her life. Nor will she have any dress, shoes, or manicure. "Honey, are you okay, Jennifer?" the girl's mother inquired cautiously. "You're all pale today. Didn't manage to sell anything at all." Caroline covered her eyes with her hands, unable to hold back the tears that were about to spill. "My girl, what's wrong? Has someone hurt you?" the woman asked again, clasping her crying daughter to her side. "I don't want to go to this stupid prom," Caroline finally managed to utter, trying to control her sobs. Jennifer stroked her daughter's soft, dark blonde, shiny hair and looked into her lovely golden brown eyes. "Honey, but prom is one of the most important days in any girl's life, isn't it? Are you sure you want to miss such an important event? There won't be a second time like this in your life," her mother warned her. Caroline only sobbed a couple of times, then sat down on the bed and began to wipe her eyes thoroughly with a handkerchief. "And it's a good thing it won't," she said. "What haven't I seen at this feast of female vanity? The guests will all do nothing but show off their expensive dresses to each other and drink cheap red wine, while the class teacher and the principal discuss the biggest gossip of the year in a corner of the gym." Jennifer smiled at her daughter, but Caroline saw a slight sadness in that smile. "Are you really that worried about not having anything to wear?" she asked affectionately. "I've already put some money aside for you for a dress. And the shoes, you can have my shoes. Do you remember the loafers like that? I married your father in them." Her mother's eyes clouded with unpleasant memories. Sometimes Caroline marveled at how much her parents loved each other, even though they had lived together for many years and endured hardships. Jennifer had come to this town from a remote village where she had been raised by her grandmother until she came of age. Unfortunately, Jennifer was never able to enroll in any educational institution to continue her studies. The knowledge she received in the village was barely enough to keep her from starving. The young girl was offered only low-skilled work as a cleaner, or, even worse, openly obscene offers. In order to get a foothold in this place and make ends meet, Caroline's mother got a job as a floor cleaner in the office of a taxi company near the station. It was there that she met Michael, her future husband. Michael had been working as a taxi driver for several years and was earning quite well. He was immediately attracted to a modest, pretty cleaner who came to their town from the province. Her purity and openness touched the heart of the man, so that soon the taxi driver invited the girl to the first date, after which he and Jennifer began to officially meet. About a year later, the couple played a wedding, after which the young people happily lived in marriage for almost 10 years. During this time, they had Caroline, a charming daughter, the name Jennifer gave because of her great love for the flower of the same name. All this time, the woman continued to work in a taxi park, and her husband to drive the residents to the suburbs. The salary received by Jennifer was not large, but thanks to Michael, their small family steadfastly kept afloat, being able, though not lavish, but to buy everything necessary for life. The year that little Caroline turned 11, however, disaster came knocking. Michael was driving an elderly couple from the village back to the city. The weather that autumn was very wet, and it was raining constantly. Because of this, the driver had to be doubly attentive on the wet road, making sure that he could fit into the next corner or brake in time at the traffic lights. The elderly people Michael was driving, as it turned out, were very unrestrained and overly emotional. The elderly people Michael was driving were, as luck would have it, very unrestrained and overly emotional. They were constantly dissatisfied with something and threatened to write a complaint against the taxi driver. Because of this, Caroline's father now and then distracted from the road, trying to pacify the nagging couple. At one of these sensitive moments, the man missed a warning sign and, unable to control himself, smashed through an iron fence, sending him and his passengers into a ditch. The car flipped several times on the steep slope before stopping its fateful course. As luck would have it, the elderly couple were virtually unhurt, with only a few scratches, while Michael's life hung in the balance. His right arm was damaged so badly that the man risked dying at any moment due to heavy blood loss. Doctors miraculously managed to save his life, but the mutilated arm, alas, had to be amputated. When the taxi driver regained consciousness, he could not believe what had happened for a long time. How could it be? He was the breadwinner of the family. What would happen to his wife and daughter? Jennifer managed with great difficulty to calm him down and assure him that life goes on. No matter what happened, they would always be together. And she would do whatever was necessary to get them through these hard times. Since then, Caroline's mother has had to work 3 times as hard, taking extra shifts at the city hospital as well as at her daughter's school. Although Michael fell into a brief apathy at first, soon enough he was able to pull himself together. After all, with one arm or two, he continued to be the head of the family and could not allow himself to be completely supported by his wife and daughter. Caroline was by then already actively helping her mother. The man began to develop his left arm and look for ways to earn an alternative income. Naturally, working in a taxi was out of the question. After another 6 months, he mastered the art of creating papier-mâché figurines and weaving baskets from vines, for which he traveled to the nearest forest, where he collected suitable wood. Persistent and strong-minded, Michael was ready to sell the fruits of his labor himself. But to this occupation, all the local men who personally knew Caroline's father treated not so much with contempt, but rather with a slight sneer. They said that he had been a normal man, driving people around, and now he had stooped to selling baskets in the street. Then Caroline offered her father to sit instead of him on a busy shopping street of the town with his daughter. "Is it enough for you to walk the corridors to class with your mother?" she asked. The father refused at first out of pride. "It's not good enough for you. I understand how your classmates look at you because of that," he said. Caroline was embarrassed, but tried to brush it off. "To hell with them," the girl answered him, smiling. "I'm not doing this to amuse them, but because we need the money. You spend a lot of time on this weaving and figurines, and women are much more willing to buy such things. What about your studies?" Her father looked at her doubtfully. "What about my studies? Studying won't run away," Caroline answered him simply. "I will trade at weekends, and first I will try the squares. Or the markets, then I'll go to the railway station. A lot of people pass by there during the day. Maybe we'll make some money." Michael furtively brushed a large tear from the corner of his eye. He thanked God every day for giving him such a beautiful, understanding, and supportive family. He could hardly have dreamed of anything more in his life. Except that it was a little hard without a hand. "All right," he agreed. "But only after work, straight home. I don't want you to fall behind in your classes because of this." "Don't worry," laughed back her daughter. "I learn new material quickly. As my teachers tell me, everything will be fine." Caroline shook her father's hand encouragingly and thought about how much she loved her family. For the sake of these people, she was ready to endure any difficulties, as long as they were healthy, fed, and had the opportunity to meet each new day with joy. Michael not unreasonably worried about the attitude of classmates to his daughter. No matter how friendly Caroline tried to behave with them, the school community flatly refused to accept her. Although the girl turned out to be the most attractive, not at all awkward in the class, and regularly received only excellent grades in physical education, other, more successful classmates only did that sought to tease Caroline at every opportunity. "What, Carolina, are you preparing for your after-school program again?" Vanessa, the first beauty of the class, mocked her in the locker room. "Let me guess. Do you have an extra class today to carry buckets of water or not?" "Oh wait, must be obstacle course practice. You're jumping up and down the stairs with a mop?" Vanessa was laughing a hysterical, unpleasant laugh. Caroline had to restrain herself from saying something equally caustic and unflattering. The girl tried to avoid school fights, but it did not mean that she was ready to tolerate such an attitude to herself until the end of her senior year. "Vanessa, you'd better finish taking your weight loss supplements," she said calmly, tying her old trainers. The classmates' laughter broke off abruptly. "I'm serious. It's already melted your brains. You're laughing like a lunatic. Vanessa's face instantly contorted into a grimace of anger and disgust. Caroline realized she'd guessed right. Vanessa had been frantically trying to lose weight for the past few months to fit into the designer dress her parents had promised her for the prom. The only problem was that the size range of such outfits ended exclusively at size 42. You little brat, you filthy little brat. You'll never get married with such a horrible pedigree. So you're wasting your time training and running 5 kilometers a day. The girl was ready to run even 10 kilometers. She spat out in anger. The most you can be in this town is an elite call girl. And that's if you don't despise sleeping with a girl who's been mudding like a pig since high school. Vanessa threw with all her might at Caroline a dirty rag that the cleaning lady had left in the locker room so she wouldn't have to go far to get a change of clothes. The piece of cloth fell on Carolina's head with a loud smack, and all the girls in the room burst out laughing. Serves her right, you upstart. Show her where she belongs, will you? Vanessa was taunted by her friends. You think you can open your filthy mouth here? Caroline was shaking like a fever. She had never felt such hatred from others. More than anything else in the world, she wanted to disappear, to dissolve like vapor from water on a hot surface. She didn't realize how she had shouted in her heart to all those puffed-up puppets. Choke on your anger. All you know is to wash the bones of blokes, don't you? You have no interests in each other's lives except money and rags. I hate you all, you puffed-up pussies. Caroline didn't realize how she had jumped out of the changing room. The girl rushed past all the other students and ran down the corridor right into the street. Once she was in the school stadium, she heard a chant. Caroline. Class hadn't started yet. Where are you going? Harry, the gym teacher, shouted after her. But the girl didn't listen to him. She ran 5 laps in a row before her heart was able to beat again. Caroline didn't know where she got her ability to run, but she was sure that everything in life is given to a person for a reason. And if she had the opportunity to develop this ability, then she should use it, especially since running was the only thing that helped her calm down and bring her chaotic thoughts into relative order. Trying to regain her breath, Caroline approached her classroom. The boys, lined up in a row and unaware of what had recently happened in the girls' locker room, looked at their classmate with surprise, and some with outright envy. Watch and learn. The gym teacher waved his hand in Carolina's direction. 3 kilometers in 10 minutes. And your shoes are ready to be included in the Olympic team. Not like you idiots. To the left, go, 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 go. There was a loud whistle, and Carolina's classmates, with dejected faces, ran their standard 6 laps. Well done, Caroline. Harry patted her on the shoulder. Take a rest, bye. It's the first time I've seen results like yours in 5 years. A real talent. The gym teacher shook his head and went off to follow the older students, while Caroline sat on the sports bench and pondered his words. Sure, it was a little late for her to start a sports career, but could her running talents be applied in a more productive way? The answer to this question the girl has not yet found for herself, precisely because of the incident in the locker room, and also because of a series of regular petty bullying from other girls. Caroline did not want to go to the prom. However, Jennifer still managed to persuade her daughter not to miss such a momentous event. After all, it's better to take your diploma from them right away, so that you don't have to go there again, the understanding mother winked. But you must never show them that you are scared. And if you don't come to the graduation, that's exactly what you'll show them. Let's not give them something to gossip about. Okay, Caroline sighed heavily, but agreed. Okay, let this be my last fight. Jennifer helped to choose and buy for her daughter the most beautiful dress they could find in an inexpensive second-hand shop, a simple cut, but at the same time very elegant and refined dress in the shade of sapphire, which perfectly emphasized Caroline's slender, athletic figure and perfectly set off the noble and yet completely natural color of her hair. The wedding shoes, which Jennifer lent to her daughter, perfectly matched the outfit and Caroline's high hairstyle, which she had also made herself. It's a pity I don't have any jewelry at all, Jennifer complained, looking sadly at the girl's festive look. Why not? Michael suddenly joined the gathering and grinned slyly at his favorite women. Dad, are you what? Caroline looked at him uncertainly, and in her eyes Michael read anxiety and worry. Don't tell me you bought something for me." "It ended sadly," Caroline said with a smile. "I did." Her father nodded with a smile and pulled a small velvet box out of his shirt pocket. Caroline was incredibly embarrassed. Not only had her mother bought her a dress that was simply magical by the girl's standards, but her father had managed to throw away a considerable amount of money for her. "Why?" Caroline asked him guiltily. But Michael had already reached out to her and put a box in her hand. "It's a little miracle." "Open it," he said. Caroline opened the lid with a sinking heart. On a white velvet cushion lay a tiny gold pendant in the shape of a star. The five-pointed beauty shone proudly with its rays, even though it was no bigger than a fingernail on Caroline's index finger. Each ray of the star ended in a tiny shining crystal, and when the light fell on the stones, they lit up a myriad of colored lights. "Oh my God, it's beautiful." Mother and daughter exhaled almost simultaneously. Michael smiled and said to the girl, "Caroline, I want you to know that you, for me, will always be a guiding star that will not let me go astray from the right course. You and Mum are my two brightest stars." With these words, the man hugged first his wife with one arm and then his daughter, who clung to her father's strong and reliable shoulder. "Thank you, Daddy," Caroline said through tears of gratitude. "I will never take it off. I will always wear it as a talisman." Michael agreed with his daughter that he would pick her up from school in the evening after the party was over. It got dark early in their neighborhood, and teenagers, when they're drunk, are a mess. You never know what to expect from them. So her father decided to insure the girl in case the drunken classmates suddenly wanted to afford too much. When Caroline entered the assembly hall, where the event was held, many of her classmates quieted down, not immediately recognizing the girl. She looked around, deciding where she could best sit so as not to draw too much attention to herself. When Vanessa suddenly appeared on the horizon, like a shark's fin in the middle of a calm ocean. The queen never walks alone. For some reason, Caroline thought at that moment the first beauty of the class was accompanied by her own entourage, consisting of 3 girls and 2 guys. And the whole company was heading straight for her. Caroline noted to herself that Vanessa didn't wear the desired dress from a famous designer. Apparently, she couldn't fit herself to the notorious beauty standards of the famous brand. Instead, Vanessa wore a perfectly tight, extremely short leather dress, whose coloring was somewhere in the middle between a flesh tone and the color of bronze powder. Good thing it doesn't blend in completely, Caroline thought. Otherwise, you'd think she'd come completely unclothed. "Well, here's our Cinderella," Vanessa said, stretching her vowels. "Cute dress. Did you get it secondhand? It's okay. It's okay. You can wear it once, and then it'll be handy for scrubbing floors." Caroline gritted her teeth to keep from telling her what she thought of her provocative outfit. At that moment, Vanessa noticed the gold pendant around her neck. How lovely. The classmate's eyes flashed, and she reached out her hand to touch the jewel. "Don't touch it," Caroline sharply brushed her fingers away. "It's a present from Daddy," she said with a caustic grin. "It hurts." Vanessa replied with a scornful arch of her eyebrow. "It's just a cheap thing you bought on sale anyway." "If I asked, my parents would give me a dozen of them," Vanessa said. She turned and led the other boys, who followed reluctantly after their leader. Caroline chuckled softly. It seemed that Vanessa's superiority was beginning to bore even her most devoted fans. After the graduation ceremony, the real disco began. Under the influence of good mood, invigorating music and hot drinks, everyone danced. As they say, who can do what they like? Caroline did not dance. She wanted to leave immediately after receiving her papers. But the headmistress asked her to stay and be with the guys a little longer, because it was the last time we were all together. Although Caroline was not particularly eager to continue the evening, she gave in to the headmistress' request. When the slow dance sounded, the hall was illuminated with soft and languid light. The girl saw someone approaching her. The figure emerging from the pink smoke was Andrew, Vanessa's boyfriend. "Hi, Caroline." Andrew began, smiling languidly. "You look really good tonight. Can I ask you to dance?" Caroline was embarrassed. She realized that something was wrong. Why would Vanessa's boyfriend ask her to slow dance? "Wouldn't your lover be angry?" She tried to joke. She couldn't believe that the most handsome guy in the school wanted to dance with her. A slight shadow ran across the guy's face. "No, she won't. I'm sick of her," he rolled his eyes. "All I hear every day is, Andrew, am I pretty, Andrew? Am I pretty, Andrew? Have I lost weight? The scales don't seem to be reading right," and so on and so forth. It became impossible to communicate with her. Caroline held back a laugh. No one had ever portrayed Vanessa so vividly and seemingly. "Yes, she's very fond of herself," the girl nodded. "Okay, but just one dance. I have to go home soon." "If you say so, beautiful lady." Andrew smiled and, making an elegant gesture, offered his hand to the girl. Caroline danced a slow dance for the first time in her life. It was an amazing, unlike anything she had ever felt before. It was as if a whole swarm of small colored hummingbirds had been released inside her, and the tiny birds were flying all over her body, giving every movement of the girl a truly airy lightness. Andrew looked at her so intently, as if he really wondered what Caroline was like. What kind of person was she? What is she like? Immersed in her romantic thoughts, Caroline did not immediately notice a figure with a touch of bronze powder flashed behind her. "Get out of here," Vanessa hissed. Caroline had no time to react when Andrew's strong hands grabbed her by the shoulders and turned her around to face her rich classmate. In the next second, Vanessa spewed a huge amount of tomato juice from a paper bag at her with all her might. Caroline gasped at the nasty, brackish taste. The first minute she was afraid that she had poured real pig's blood on her, like in a popular horror film. "Drink, drink, you cesspit," Vanessa said, pouring juice all over the unfortunate classmate. "You miserable fool. What are you doing? Did you really believe Andrew just wanted to dance with you? You thought he liked you?" Vanessa tilted her head and started laughing like a lunatic. The smoke and the light made it look like Caroline had been doused with something black like tar. Stop it, stop it. Vanessa, you're crazy." Caroline shouted back at her, trying to get out of Andrew's grasp. He released her, and she began to shake off the sticky, salty liquid. Her dress was hopelessly ruined, as was her hair. And what was most tragic of all, her mum's wedding shoes. "God, how can you be such a monster, Vanessa?" Caroline asked her in despair. "Why do you hate me so much?" Vanessa condescended to answer, smiling with all her 32 teeth. "It's a joy to hate you. I despise you, Caroline, because people like you are always trying to get out of your dirty hole, like mice waiting for someone to deliver cheese for them outside. You should know your place and keep your head down," Vanessa said. "What do you think? I didn't see you flashing your legs at our boys in gym class." "What, Caroline?" From the shock, Caroline struggled to speak. "Vanessa, come on. I'm just a good runner. And it's nobody's fault that you can't stop eating fries in packs." Apparently, that last remark had finally pissed Vanessa off, and all the anger and meanness that had been in her until that moment came out. She took a swing at her classmate. Vanessa sharply lowered her perfectly manicured hand and grabbed the chain around Caroline's neck and pulled off the pendant Michael had given her. "Did you think you could be better than me?" Vanessa whispered, clutching Caroline's gold star in her fist. "But I have money and social standing, and all you have is your filthy rag, which you will use every day for the rest of your life to mop the floors of this school or some rundown hospital on the outskirts of town." Caroline lunged for the wretch, but Andrew grabbed her arms, preventing her from resisting Vanessa. Give it back now," the girl shouted tearfully. "You have no right to even touch him. You're the most disgusting person I've ever known. Give me the pendant back." Vanessa held the pendant up to Caroline's face, knowing full well that she couldn't take it away from her. Then she released the chain from her fingers, and the little star swung in front of her nose like a hypnotist's pendulum. "You're a pathetic cleaning lady's daughter, and you'll never get close to being a normal person," Vanessa said in a thick, low voice. "Repeat after me. I know my place, Vanessa, and I'm the pathetic daughter of a maintenance worker." "Go to hell," Vanessa, Caroline said, glaring hatefully at the blonde in the leather dress. The resentment swept over her head, preventing her from snapping out of the feeling of all-consuming anger. "Do it again, or you'll never see your jewel again," Vanessa whispered again. She wanted to throw the pendant on the floor to crush it with the heel of her lacquered shoes. But at that moment, the general light flashed brightly, and the teenagers saw Megan's headmistress looking at them with all the sternness she was capable of. "What the hell is going on here, Vanessa?" she asked the rich alumna angrily. Then she glared menacingly at Andrew, who instantly released Caroline. The girl didn't hold back her feelings and slapped the henchman with an impressive slap. "You filthy henchman," Caroline said through gritted teeth. Then she held out her open palm to Vanessa. "Give it back. What you took now." Vanessa. The headmistress looked at her reproachfully. Vanessa put the pendant back into Caroline's palm, being careful not to touch her, after defiantly wiping her hands on her dress. "Megan, can I go home?" Shaking with humiliation and resentment, Caroline asked her. "My dad is probably waiting for me outside." She realized that at that moment she had become an absolute laughingstock in front of all the students and teachers at her school. Megan looked at the girl with genuine regret and said briefly, "Of course, dear, go. Have a happy life after school," she added belatedly. But Caroline was already closing the doors to the assembly hall behind her, and at the same time to this horrible part of her now definitive past. After graduation, Carolina had been in a terrible state. For almost a month, not wanting to go out, she hadn't discussed what had happened with her parents. When Michael met her at the school and saw in what moral and physical state is his daughter, the man was ready to tear and throw. "Daughter, just tell me, who are the bastards who did this to you? They're your classmates, right?" "What difference does it make?" Caroline waved it off. "Forget it, Dad. It was just some fools playing a joke on me like that. Luckily, I don't have to hang out with any of them anymore. I can't even see this school. Let's go home." The distraught father calmed his daughter down as best he could, but he returned home feeling quite upset. His sacred duty was to protect his daughter's own blood. And now this. And Caroline, a light-hearted person, flatly refused to reveal the names of the villains. Michael could not, with all his will, break into the school and shake this information out of the teachers. Jennifer reassured her husband, saying that if her daughter didn't want to talk about it, then there was no need to get involved, so she had to deal with it on her own. Besides, she assured her husband, "Caroline always knows that we are close by, and we will always help her with everything she needs. Our daughter is very strong. If she needs our help, you and I will know about it, believe me." Caroline, meanwhile, was lying on her bed, clutching the tattered chain of her pendant in her hand. It wasn't even the dress or the nasty words Vanessa had said that hurt the most. Most of all, Caroline was tormented by anger for the spoiled gift of her father. She realized that the chain could be repaired, but she didn't want to burden her parents with it, telling them that she had just taken the pendant off and put it back to her. Caroline contemplated her future. Now that the hated school was over, the girl could for the first time consciously choose what to do with her life next. She realized that she had no prospects in this city. But to enter a good university in the capital also required a lot of money. And where to get it from? A regular part-time job. From the backwoods. And Caroline couldn't just leave her parents like that. They needed help, including material aid. The girl listed in her mind what she could do best. But alas, the list wasn't that long. Running, cooking, and the ability to wax floors to a shine. God, Caroline thought, was Vanessa right after all. And I'm not going to get anywhere in this life with these opportunities. Bitter tears ran down her cheeks. It turned out that her classmate, without knowing it, had predicted her future. But Carolina was not one of those who let circumstances overrule her so easily. Therefore, the girl decided to do the following. She wanted to work all next year to save a sufficient amount of money. After that, the girl intended to go to try her luck in a large regional metropolis. There she wanted to take a course in her profession, and maybe, after passing it, find a good job with a decent salary in the center. Caroline realized that it would be a difficult path, but she was ready to endure everything to change her life, thus getting rid of Vanessa's humiliating prediction. Having told her parents about her plans, Caroline sighed with relief. They were not against the girl to try to find a decent job. Michael and his wife were very happy that their daughter finally began to come out of that terrible state. "I will continue to help Mom and Dad," promised Caroline. "But I have to think about my own destiny. I want you to be proud of me, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to achieve my dream." A couple of days later, Caroline took her CV to a recruitment agency. She offered her services as a maid and, if required, she could also act as a cook, preparing simple meals. To her surprise, the call came quite quickly after that. In just a week, the girl was already sitting in front of a female employee recruiting domestic staff for wealthy homes. The woman scrutinized her profile and then looked at Caroline intently in the eyes. "What about your stress tolerance? Can you handle unusual situations normally?" The girl was somewhat taken aback. It was the first time she had ever been asked such a question, but she answered nonetheless. "Depends on what you mean by the word unconventional." The recruiter raised an eyebrow that was perfectly fine, like a thread, and began to curl her fingers. "Well, for example, if you are suddenly insulted without reason, from your point of view, raise your voice at you, or, on the contrary, show you special attention, maybe even with elements of a slight flirtation." Caroline gasped in amazement. "Excuse me, do you want to employ me as a maid or, with all due respect, sell me to a not very decent establishment?" The girl realized that after such words she would probably never get a job. But she couldn't help herself. Whatever it was, she wouldn't let anyone humiliate her again. Never. The employee nodded her head briefly and made a note in her notebook. She then raised her eyes to Caroline again. "Well, you answer more or less politely. And your reaction is quite adequate. I will report these points to my superiors so that they can make a final decision. You see, you've had 3 maids leave this place before you, and every one of them felt obliged to tell me in color that they were not warned about how bad it was going to be." "Is that a warning?" I asked Caroline, just in case. "Consider it a warning," the personnel officer nodded. "Expect to be contacted within 3 days. If you are contacted within that time, you are accepted. You will learn the rest of the details of your job on the spot. And yes, I almost forgot. You will be required to live on the employer's premises for the duration of the contract." Caroline nodded in agreement. It was all very strange, but all the more exciting. She really wanted to be hired for this position. The salary was more than generous. There would be something to help her parents. And even if these unusual situations arose in the course of business, she would not give herself an offense. 2 days later, Caroline's mobile phone rang happily, informing the girl that she had been accepted as a maid in the house of a rich businessman. "Mom, Dad, hurrah. I have a job now," Caroline happily announced to her parents. "They said they would pick me up in 4 hours. "I'm going to go pack," Caroline said. Jennifer breathed a sigh of relief and crossed herself. Her husband gently hugged her with the arm that had survived the accident, and the girl's mother slowly lowered her head onto her husband's shoulder. "Here is our girl going into adulthood," she said slowly. "God, I wish she'd do well there." "Don't worry," Jenny Michael held her close. "Remember, you told me yourself that our daughter is a very strong person. She'll get through anything." When it was time to leave, it was not without tears. Her parents saw Caroline off with all the tenderness and warmth of their hearts, expecting her to come back next weekend to share her impressions of her new job. Carolina was picked up from her home 9-story building by a huge black business class UE. When the girl climbed into it, it seemed to her that she was inside a cruise liner, so huge was the space of the car interior. The driver turned out to be a not very talkative middle-aged man, who calmly drove her to the desired destination. When she got out of the car, Caroline couldn't believe her eyes. In front of her stood a gigantic 4-story mansion, made in a completely modern style with glass and chrome metal constructions. Caroline thought involuntarily that the owner of this house must be very fond of shopping centers, if he had decided to live in one of them. She didn't voice these thoughts out loud, of course. Instead, she obediently followed the head housekeeper and housekeeper who led her to the pool, instructing the new employee along the way. Try not to make eye contact with Oliver when he asks you something. It's best to lower your gaze and answer in a matter-of-fact manner. If you're cleaning a room and the owner suddenly walks in, you shouldn't fuss or pretend to notice his presence. Just get on with your work. Oliver is used to all the servants moving about and working almost silently. You're part of this house, and in a way you have to blend in with it and everything that goes on here. Often we don't pay attention to the owner's little quirks, the housekeeper continued. We only call the guards if we realize that it could endanger his life and health. Caroline was silent, but she felt as if she were in some modern fairy tale about an enchanted castle where everyone was silent and could not say a word to the cruel king who ruled this high-tech kingdom. The housekeeper's last sentence, however, surprised Caroline somewhat. "Excuse me, I think you said something about quirks. May I clarify what exactly was meant?" The housekeeper stopped and looked at the girl as if she were trying to see through her thoughts with invisible X-rays. "You were not warned by the agency about possible irregularities, were you?" she asked dryly. "Do I understand correctly?" "No, why not?" "They explained to me that there were some special circumstances, but what were they?" The housekeeper raised her eyebrows elegantly. "Well then, you'll soon see for yourself." The woman led her to a large rectangular pool, on the marble terrace of which sat a young man reclining in a sun lounger. He was wearing large sunglasses, a bright red Hawaiian shirt, and white knee-length shorts. The guy looked to be about 24 to 25 years old. Judging by his relaxed manner and the way he was calmly flipping through the newspaper in his lap, he was the owner's son. Pleased, the housekeeper nodded to him. Caroline arrived exactly 10 minutes ago, as the master had requested. After that, the lady silently left, leaving the girl and the young man alone. "Hello," Caroline greeted him politely. "Excuse me, do you know how long we have to wait for Oliver?" The man froze, holding the newspaper half open, and then looked at the girl in surprise from under the shimmering glasses. "I don't understand," was all he could ask. "Excuse me, but you must be the son of the owner of this house, aren't you?" Caroline answered the question with a question. "I just can't get used to how many rules there are here. I wanted to ask you about them before I met Oliver," she continued. The young man continued to stare at the maid in mute amazement. She, not knowing what to do in such a delicate situation, just stood there staring back at him. Finally, the man couldn't stand it any longer and laughed loudly. Caroline felt incredibly stupid, but still managed to squeeze out a weak smile. "Honestly, I've never had one of those before," he said through his laughter, and came close to Caroline. The girl blushed instantly, not knowing if she could back away from him at least a couple of steps. The master's son came so close that Caroline could feel the fabric of his fluttering shirt with her hand. "Caroline, that's your name, isn't it?" he asked with a playful smile. "Did Amanda say it right?" "Yes, that's right." Caroline looked up at him again. "Now, Caroline, the owner of the house is not coming here for the simple reason that he is already standing in front of you. I am Oliver." Caroline stood still with her mouth open in astonishment. Without another word, the young man pushed his glasses back over his eyes, and then strode off at a steady pace toward the stairs leading to his private wing. He threw her a final glance without turning round. "I like you, Caroline. You are now definitely accepted. Please tell Amanda and ask her to come and see me when she has a free moment." With these words, he disappeared, leaving Caroline in a half-faint with excitement. Caroline told the housekeeper that the master was waiting for her. She pressed her lips together and showed her into the back room, where she gave her all the necessary clothes and the key to her room. "Remember, we rise at 6, so you won't be seen or heard. And no matter how embarrassed you are, you must continue to do your job. Do you understand?" "Understood," Caroline replied, thoroughly embarrassed. Caroline went to her room to change. Thus began the working day for the girl. She soon realized what Amanda had meant when she spoke of Oliver's quirks. It turned out that he loved to host big costume parties with loud music, beautiful women, and expensive drinks. Besides Caroline herself, there were about 15 other people working in the house, and they all behaved as if they were exactly the same things in the young millionaire's mansion, like some floor vase or a painting hanging on one of the walls. It was, of course, very disconcerting to the girl that all the employees of Oliver's house were acting quietly and inconspicuously. After all, Oliver had clearly made it clear to her that he could socialize with them as ordinary people. Amanda, however, continued to insist on numerous rules of behavior even after her host had summoned her to talk to her. Well, Caroline couldn't cross her either. In the first month of work, she received a substantial advance on her card, part of which she immediately sent to her parents. Oliver remained an inscrutable mystery to her. He could easily walk up and kiss one of the young gardeners he paired with her. They were twin sisters and tended an incredibly beautiful winter garden, but at the same time he never allowed himself any flirtations of a certain kind with her or them. For these purposes, Oliver had far more experienced girls who could safely be called mistresses. One named Molly stood out among them. The long-legged, red-haired beauty spent most of her time with Oliver, and he, in turn, increasingly applied the definition of fiancé to her. The entire staff of the house concluded that soon the young people would be married and their master would have a legitimate wife. However, this eccentric rich man had a completely different side. Very often, especially in the evening, Caroline found the young man immersed in the affairs of his company. He would sit for hours at his desk, and sometimes Caroline was sure he worked all night long. She had never once heard him say a rude word to anyone in the household. And if any of the workers made serious mistakes, Oliver always spoke to them in private, locked away in his office. But his fiancée Molly did not share this peaceful coexistence with the staff. She was always picking on everything, shouting at everyone, and the young maids, including Caroline, tried to bring her to tears. "Why are you talking here during working hours?" she shouted at the girls. "Don't you have anything else to do? Look around: dust, dirt, carpets. You're not sweeping properly. Get back to work, you slackers. Well, when Oliver and I get married, I'll get to work on you. How many of you have Amanda taught you? It's all over the place. What are you looking at me for? Look me in the eye when I'm talking." Molly growled at them like a wild tigress, imagining herself the mistress of the house. The maids held on with all their might, unable to endure her terrifying screams and shrieks. God forbid Oliver should marry that Molly, one of the maids complained to her in the kitchen. "Caroline, then we'd all be ruined." "What can she do to you?" Caroline asked her with a smile. "She's not his wife yet. You're not panicking yet." Millie looked at the girl and said with bitterness in her voice, "You just don't know her, Caroline. This is not a woman. That's jealousy and greed combined. Only in stilettos. She'd run us all to pieces, I'll bet. She's jealous of her master's every plate. The other day she complained to him that we were too pretty to walk round the house and charm him with our slim legs." Beatrice and Caroline laughed together, realizing how absurd the situation was, especially when it came to a man like their master. "I can't lose this job," Beatrice continued sadly. "I have a little son in the village with my mother. I work here and send them money so that Matthew will not need anything." "I understand," Caroline said. "My parents have always lived very modestly in another town, so this place is a real chance for me to make a name for myself." Beatrice looked out the window at the full moon hanging over the horizon and smiled dreamily. "Oliver's very good," she murmured, as if in confidence. "He has his quirks, of course, but he's not as cruel as Amanda says he is. I suspect she's made him look like that to us on purpose, so that we'll work harder and not relax." "He is a little strange," Caroline agreed, and looked away from Beatrice, lest she should read into it the feelings that Caroline felt every time she remembered how close Oliver had been to her. He is very young, and for the owner of such a huge company, how had he achieved all this? "He inherited it 3 years ago," Beatrice replied simply. "Since then, he's had these oddities of working non-stop and resting all the time. His father, Marcus, was poisoned at a business dinner. The police were never able to figure out who did it. You could say the culprit is still walking free. And Oliver is very afraid that at any moment he could be next." Really, Caroline was genuinely surprised. "Well, yes," Beatrice nodded. Caroline was struck to the heart. She had never imagined that such a tragedy could have befallen this outwardly light and cheerful person. "I think," Beatrice continued, "that all these parties and phobias, like the fact that he always takes our cook, Kevin, and one of the maids with him when he goes to other cities, are all ways of distancing himself from this personal drama. Oliver, he loved his father so much, he can't seem to get over losing him. And the bastards who sent Marcus to the grave never got what they deserved. I guess it's all hit him too hard," Caroline muttered thoughtfully to herself. Who would have thought that the rich had more trouble than the common people? All the next night, Caroline could not sleep for some unknown reason. Everything seemed to be going well, but her mind drifted back and forth to Oliver. "I wish I knew what kind of man he really is. Maybe this bravado is just a mask, someone more vulnerable, someone she could probably help." A couple of weeks later, Exactly what Beatrice had told her about happened. Oliver was going on a business trip of great importance to his business, and, as he always did, he took Kevin, his longtime cook, and his maid with him. The latter, to his great amazement, was Caroline herself. "Why are you so surprised?" Oliver asked her with a slight chuckle. "I need someone I can trust 100% to clean my room and control the food I eat during the trip. I don't think it's a big deal." "Yes, but you don't know me at all," Caroline objected. "I haven't been with you that long. What if I can't do it?" The young man's face took on a serious expression, and then he replied in a voice that sent shivers down Caroline's spine. "Well, if you can't do it, then you and I will have to part. Or we can do it right now if you're not sure you're ready for a business trip. Because that's what a business trip is to you." "No, it's not. Of course I'll go with you," Caroline said with her lips pressed together. How could she be so foolish as to think that this calculating businessman could have a soul? If Beatrice was right about his worries about her father's death, he was either hiding them very well, or her friend was mistaken. Because how could a man who was ready in 2 seconds to fire another man standing in front of him at that very moment be worried? No, Caroline shook her head as she left her boss's office. Oliver could be anything, but he's certainly not a bereaved person in need of comfort. When all the things were packed and Caroline and Kevin were getting into one of the 2 large jeeps, one for her and the cook, and the other for Oliver and his guard, Kevin said to Caroline with a kind smile, "Don't you worry so much, my dear. I've been traveling with the owner for years, and it's always been fine. It's only for a couple of days. There's nothing to worry about." Caroline answered the cook with a calm but somewhat detached smile. She herself was pricked by something inside her. A bad feeling plagued the young maid. Suddenly, looking up at the upper windows of the mansion, she thought she saw a familiar silhouette flicker into Oliver's study, for a tiny fraction of an instant. She even thought she saw someone's fiery red hair through the window. But it couldn't be. Molly had gone to some foreign resort the other day, and was not expected to return for another week at the earliest. "It must be your imagination," Caroline said to herself. "You should read less detective stories at night." With these thoughts, the girl got into the car. At first the road was good, and the way through a dense forest seemed to the girl even picturesque. But gradually, the closer they got to the wide stone bridge, the more potholes were encountered on their way. The driver explained to Caroline that the road had not been repaired for a long time, and therefore they had to be especially careful here. "You don't have to explain to me," she nodded, remembering the tragedy that had happened to her own father. The driver wanted to say something else to Caroline, but suddenly he was attracted by something unusual happening ahead with Oliver's car. His business car, which was considered one of the most reliable in the world, suddenly began to swerve on the road. Every now and then his driver was swerving sideways. "What the hell is going on up there?" was all the driver of the Jeep with the cook and the maid could manage to say. When the car in front of him went over the bridge railing at full speed and fell into the water with a loud splash. "Oliver," was all Caroline could exclaim in despair. But then their car began to do the same kind of pretzels. "What happened?" Kevin asked, horrified, his huge blue eyes now huge. "Are we all going to crash now?" "Don't talk rubbish, Kevin," shouted the driver, trying to hold on to the steering wheel. "I don't understand. I just had a full inspection last week. What the—" He didn't have time to finish, because their Jeep also failed to slow down and went full speed into the river after Oliver's car. Caroline couldn't remember exactly how she'd ended up underwater. It was just a protective reflex, and she opened her eyes, being already a few meters into the deep abyss. The cabin was completely submerged. This she realized at once. Sitting next to her with his eyes wide open was Kevin. Blood was oozing from the wound on his temple. And Caroline realized with bitterness that the poor man had obviously been hit when the car fell. He was dead, and so was the driver, who was almost immediately choked by the powerful torrent of water. Being an excellent swimmer, Caroline had good lung capacity, so she managed to get out of the Jeep quickly enough. The girl looked, trying to find the second car in the murky water. Finally, she saw it. Oliver's car was buried up to its bonnet in the mud, sinking to the bottom of the river. After swimming a few more meters, she saw Oliver's hands floating in the water, which she grabbed and began to pull him upwards, away from the submerged car. With great difficulty, Carolina managed not only to pull her boss up, but also to drag him to the shore, and from there to the nearest road. There, Caroline was able to stop the first car she could find and call an ambulance. Until the medics arrived, the girl gave the victim all the necessary resuscitation measures. She felt Oliver's pulse on the shore, and making sure that he was alive, tried to pump out most of the water from his lungs. Although the man coughed up enough water, he never regained consciousness, so Caroline had to carry him on her back to the nearest motorway. Caroline's own lungs burned like they were on fire. Her legs were shaking. She was sweating and coughing. But she was determined to save Oliver. When the ambulance finally arrived, Caroline described the situation to them, and they realized that there was something wrong and called the police. Caroline and Oliver were taken to the hospital, where they received all the necessary care. As the girl was hardly hurt, she was able to visit Oliver after a few long hours, which seemed like an eternity. The man, who by then had come to his senses, thanked her profusely. "You said you couldn't handle it," he said in a hoarse voice. "You not only managed, but thanks to you I'm still alive. And I can imagine what you had to go through while you dragged me through those woods. I'm sorry, Caroline. I'm ashamed of the way I pointed out your place," Oliver said. "Come on, Oliver," Caroline said. "The most important thing is that you're breathing. My teachers at school told me I had a talent for running. I'm finally getting the hang of it. If I hadn't run so much, I wouldn't have been able to get you out. Except what?" Oliver asked her grimly. "Your colleagues, Kevin, Nick, Matthew. They're all dead," Caroline said with a heavy heart. Oliver nodded understandingly. "I don't understand what happened at all. The cars were in perfect working order, I'm sure of it." Oliver glared at his young savior. "Is something troubling you? Are you ill? Should I call a doctor?" "No," Oliver stopped her. "No, it's not that." The young man reached into his jacket, which was hanging on the chair, and pulled a thick notebook out of the pocket, followed by a pre-prepared pen, straight from the cover. He wrote something on the tiny piece of paper, and tearing it off, handed it to Caroline. "Now you are the only one I can trust." Caroline, not understanding anything, took the slip of paper from his hands. There were some numbers written on it, and the girl counted as many as 10 of them. "But what are these?" she asked. "It's a code. Don't worry, it's not for the safe," Oliver joked. "It's just from my work laptop. The computer is in my office, and I have an unusual favor to ask of you. Please, it will help me understand and solve a lot of things." Caroline nodded, and after listening to her superior's request, she drove back home. Meanwhile, an investigator came to Oliver's room. The policeman interviewed the victim and assured him that they would do everything possible to find the intruders as soon as possible. Intruders, Oliver couldn't believe his ears, so it wasn't an accident. "I'm afraid not," the policeman shook his head. "We have brought the cars to the surface, and judging by the preliminary examination, I have no consolation for you. Someone deliberately cut your brake hose, knowing that you would be traveling in very difficult road conditions," the policeman said. Oliver slowly leaned back on the pillow. "Well, they got to me, too," he breathed out heavily. "Your father's competitors," the policeman said. "I'm sorry, but I've heard about this case. As far as I understand it, they never found who was responsible for Marcus's death." Oliver nodded briefly. "I think it's the same people," he said weakly, feeling the familiar fear that the young man had been so successful at drowning out with alcohol all these years. Meanwhile, Caroline arrived at Oliver's mansion and went up to his office as inconspicuously as possible. She realized that all the cameras in the house had probably caught her, but she hoped that in case the security service was displeased with her, the owner of the mansion would somehow protect her in front of them. The girl booted up the ultra-modern flat-screen computer, then entered all 10 digits written for her by Oliver into the password field. Within a second, a blue wheel was spinning on the screen, and then access to the landlord's desktop opened up. A folder labeled Cameras clicked open. Caroline selected the appropriate date and the Garage tab, then waited for the video she wanted to see to load. Literally seconds later, Caroline saw the garage room. And then, the girl did not believe her eyes at first. A red-haired beauty in expensive shoes and the head of security, the man who was supposed to protect Oliver, entered the garage. He quickly looked around and damaged both brake hoses in the very cars they were traveling in today. What followed was an equally disgusting scene. The red-haired beast, who Caroline realized was Molly, gave her partner a kiss, after which they both left the garage at a leisurely pace. Caroline copied the tape to a flash drive, shut down the computer, and only then called the police. When the investigator and the SWAT team arrived at the mansion, the head of security was already packing his bags, expecting to run away with his girlfriend abroad. But Molly, thinking that their cunning plan had come true and Oliver was dead, had no intention of sharing her loot with her lover. Molly was picked up at the airport as she tried to leave the country. The investigation later revealed that Molly was actually working for the same people who took out Marcus, Oliver's father. She didn't take out anyone specifically, but she was promised an extremely large percentage of Oliver's wealth if he died before reaching the site of his next negotiation. So here Molly had charmed the man closest to him and put the idea in his head that she and he could be perfectly happy if they eliminated their wealthy master. Now Molly and Oliver's head of security are facing a hefty prison sentence. In addition, Oliver's ex-fiancée has shamelessly ratted out her own masters to the investigation. After all, the deal with the police guaranteed her a reduced sentence, while her lover from security will receive the maximum. Thanks to Molly's confession, the ringleaders of the rival company that had ordered Oliver's father were quickly identified. As it turned out, they were longtime enemies of their family, the family of the oldest of the brothers, who'd always wanted to take over their grand business. Oliver, coming out of the hospital, realized a lot and completely rethought his life and attitude to people. The young man first of all forever stopped with parties. In addition, Oliver permanently canceled all the stupid rules and fired Amanda, who frightened everyone. After that, he hired a completely different, kind-hearted woman who could not only manage his household perfectly, but also interacted with all his employees and co-workers as if they were family. Caroline continued her work in the house, but now they were very close friends. Their shared story of saving Oliver's life brought them together, and that was just the beginning. 15 years later, there was nowhere to park in front of the school where Caroline had once attended. The car park was packed to the gills. So many people had dreamed of seeing each other. And they'd all been classmates once. Vanessa, now an elderly woman, and once slim, stood in the middle of the hall with her husband at her side. The seated middle-aged man clearly didn't understand why he had been brought here, but he couldn't resist the will of his wealthy wife. Vanessa began to look even more full and plump than before. But whereas before her fullness had been almost imperceptible and had given her some of the glamour of her lush forms, now everything pointed only to deterioration and health problems, which Vanessa either denied or did not think it necessary to address. The woman could barely squeeze into a thin, sparkling dress, expecting, as it seems, an unforgettable wow effect from her old-school friends. However, those who admired Vanessa, and those who just pretended to admire her so as not to be pestered, could not appreciate the outfit, for the many folds made Vanessa look suspiciously like a sausage. Then a huge black car, gleaming clean, drove up to the school building. All those who were in the auditorium and were actively devouring the delicious food rushed to the window. They were curious as to who was in it. When the doors of the luxurious leather salon opened, a graceful, slender, taut leg appeared. It was wearing graphite gray boots made of the finest suede. Following this, a beautiful young woman stepped out of the car. Thin as a bamboo stalk, but not too thin either. Her body seemed to radiate health and youth, and the modest smile on her beautiful face involuntarily attracted all eyes, like a magnet. "What's going on? What are you all staring at?" Vanessa said impatiently, pushing through the crowd to the window. The woman gasped loudly, and then her face twisted with envy and anger. A few minutes later, Caroline entered the hall, beautiful and blooming like a beautiful flower. Her classmates stared dumbfounded at her gorgeous suit, a tee of English fabric, her flawless hair and discreet but quality makeup. No one could have imagined that Caroline, whom they had all mocked so meanly in their youth, would not only not lose her natural beauty and charm, but on the contrary, become the most successful woman of them all. "Hello, Caroline, how are you?" Vanessa stepped forward. "I see you're doing pretty well for yourself. How much do you pay your beautician? Or are you still doing it the old-fashioned way with a cucumber?" Vanessa laughed, pleased with her joke. However, apart from her, no one else made a sound. "Hello, Vanessa." Caroline greeted her calmly. "I just came in for a few minutes. I wanted to see you all. Take another look at my past. One last time to make sure I hadn't lost anything." Caroline took a few more steps toward Vanessa and pointed to her neck. There, as before, hung her father's gift, a pendant in the shape of a star, which the girl had bought with her first salary. "You know, Vanessa, you haven't changed a bit," the woman told her, enjoying the way her former classmate was literally bursting with envy. "You're still just as stupid, and your jokes are stupid too." Caroline looked at Vanessa from head to toe, and with one last glance at the crowd of her former classmates who had fallen from anger, boredom, and time, she slowly made her way back to the exit, saying one last time, "You see, life always knows who has done how much good and evil. Someone chooses to follow his star or gets a chance to become one of its rays. And someone remains an empty, shiny bubble for the rest of his life, from which the whole shell, alas, crumbles with time. Happy life to you all, boys." Caroline walked down to the door of the school. Her classmates immediately rushed back to the window. Oliver got out of the car that was waiting for her outside. He was still as tall and stately as ever, only now he wore a pair of slim-fitting glasses on the bridge of his nose. He was followed first by a boy of about 12, and then a girl of about 7. The children hugged Caroline happily, and Oliver smiled as he rubbed the heads of his offspring. Caroline turned round, and Oliver gave her a long kiss, full of tenderness and love. Then, after the whole story of the cars crashing into the river, he suddenly realized how different this girl was from any woman he had ever met. Courageous, strong, unbending, like a stem of bamboo. She always knew exactly what she wanted and was determined to achieve it. And tender and shy at the same time, pure as a petal of the most beautiful rose. She gave him everything he was looking for in this world and more. When he proposed to her, she told him yes. It was the happiest day of his life. When 6 months after the wedding, Caroline told him that they were expecting a child, Oliver finally felt that he was no longer alone in the world. Now they both had a chance to live the life they both deserved, and nothing in the world could stop them. As Caroline and Oliver's car drove away, they did not see how hysterical Vanessa was long afterwards. How she tore at her artificial hair and how she cursed everything in the world, not understanding why Caroline, the technician's daughter, had been able to get everything in this life that should have been hers. Instead, all she had was money, which never made Vanessa happy. Yes, an alcoholic husband who married her just to get a good position in her father's company. Time had not spared her looks. Life hadn't added to her wisdom. And all this Vanessa realized only now, when it was too late to change anything.
Naomi has always loved to dream. Since childhood, the girl grew up a very gentle nature. She had a wonderful character, and almost always she was hovering somewhere in the clouds. Naomi saw what kind of family she had and wanted to have everything the same. Her beloved husband, her children. "Mom, I'm going to the library," she often said. And indeed, she would go to the library, pick up some women's novel, sit and read it right there. "Daughter, don't you want to go to the movies?" her mother would ask her on weekends. Of course, Naomi liked it very much when she and her mother went out, watched a movie, and then discussed it. If the movie was about love, often, both woman and girl cried, even if there was a happy ending. "Naomi, what do you want to be?" her mother asked her when she was already in high school. "I love children and I want to spend my life with them," she said. "That's wonderful." Her mom approved of her choice. The girl was exemplary. She almost never went out, only sometimes with girls at discos, which were held at school or so, in the yard to sit and chat at the table. There were 4 friends, Naomi, Natalie, Casey, and Nancy. Nobody singled anyone out. They all talked the same way. "Hi." They came by to pick up Naomi one night. "I probably won't go out tonight," Naomi told them, because she wanted to spend the evening with her mom. She said there was a movie on TV that she'd been wanting to see for a long time. "Come on, let's go. You'll have time to watch it." The girls kept up with her. "Okay, I guess Mom won't be offended." She went to change. Of course, Mom wasn't offended. She understood that the girls are young. They want to go out. When else will they have such an age? And now, when there was only a little bit left till the end of school, it was necessary to give her daughter some freedom. Well, are we going to the disco right away? Nancy asked everyone. Where else would you like to go? Naomi turned to her. Don't you know that there is a new cafe in our town where there are different desserts and ice cream? We can go there. Looked at her friend's watch. Sure, let's go. I haven't been there, Naomi said, and thought to herself that her mother usually found out that there was something new in town, and they went there. The girls came to the cafe, sat down at a table, ordered ice cream, sat enjoying the cold dessert. At this moment, no one even thought how their lives would turn out, what would happen. But for Naomi, this day was fateful. At some point, the bell above the door jingled. Everyone turned their attention there. A group of guys entered the room. One was tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. Naomi herself doesn't know why she paid attention to him then, but she really liked the guy. The guys didn't pay any attention to the girls. They walked over, sat down at a table, and began to discuss some topics of their own. Naomi nudged Nancy in the side. What? Turned to her. Where the hell are you? The girls laughed. Did you see the guys who just came in? Naomi pointed to the table where the young men were sitting with her eyes. And what? They asked. That tall one over there. The girl spoke in a half whisper. Did you like him? All the others who sat with Naomi at the table were smiling. Naomi blushed because they had never talked about liking guys before. Maybe they had, but everyone kept quiet. Oh, Naomi, you're kidding. Is it love at first sight? Natalie had already finished her ice cream and was waiting for everyone else to do the same. Why not? Naomi regretted telling the girls anything. All right, everybody, and us sitting here staring at the guys, get up and let's go, Nancy ordered. She was the leader of the group. The girls did get up. Naomi didn't want to leave, in case she never saw him again, but staying here alone wasn't an option either. They went out, headed for the House of Culture, where the disco was held. On the way, they talked about some unimportant little things. Naomi was not here. Yes, she was walking next to her friends, but the tall blonde man did not get out of her head. The girls went inside and almost immediately went dancing. And what was Naomi's surprise when the slow dance started, the young man from the cafe came up to her. Would you like to dance? He asked her. Yes, she was speechless and everything else because she couldn't believe that this was actually happening. He led her to the center of the room. They started dancing. My name is Evan, he told her. I'm Naomi. She wanted to look at him, but she couldn't look up because she was too shy. I noticed you at the cafe, he told her. Yeah, she said, and then she was silent. She was ashamed to admit that she had noticed him in the cafe. She danced and thought to herself that it was really fate that they both noticed each other and liked each other at first sight. As soon as the dance was over, the girls came up to Naomi and started asking questions. Naomi, that's the guy from the cafe, Nancy told her. And you think I didn't notice that? She smiled a little. And what did he tell you? What was his name? They began to pile questions on the girl. Natalie and Casey stood back. They were very curious too. I don't know anything yet. We just danced and met. His name is Evan. He told me that he saw me there too. Naomi told them, and she saw that the guy had come downstairs too, standing there looking at them. Naomi, can I talk to you for a minute? He came up to them. Hi, Nancy said to him. Evan, meet my friends Nancy, Natalie, and Casey, said the girl, and for some reason she blushed again. She didn't realize what was happening to her. It was the first time she had been like this. Naomi began to carry over to herself all the things she had read in women's novels. There she was, so modest, quiet, docile, and he would take her by the hand and lead her through life. That's what she thought as the guy walked her home that evening. Why haven't I seen you anywhere before? Evan asked her as they approached her house. I don't know, she answered. She didn't want to go home. She wanted to spend some more time with him. But she realized that if it was real, if it was true, they would see each other again tomorrow and maybe start talking. Let's meet tomorrow, as if Evan had read her mind. Sure, I'm free after school. Come to the courtyard, she told him. They agreed, said goodbye, and the girl went home. How was the walk? Her mom asked her. Great. Naomi was shining like a new dollar. Tell me what happened. What happened? I haven't seen you so happy for a long time. Mom guessed that her daughter had something good. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think I fell in love. Clasped my hands in a lock, stood looking at Naomi's mom. Her face was smiling from ear to ear. Oh, daughter, be careful, don't get burned, her mom told her. Of course, I don't know yet. But I think Evan is nice. Naomi had always been like that. Whatever happened in her life, she always thought several steps ahead, and now she wanted everything to be as it was in her dreams. The next day they met. At first, when she approached him, he took her hands and for a few minutes they just stood looking at each other, smiling. "You have such good energy," Evan told her then. "And you have." She didn't know what to say to that, so she said so. "You know what, I think we should start dating." Evan was calm, and the fact that they knew each other so little didn't bother him in the slightest. "We could try," she replied, and inside she was jubilant. It had to be that day, to go to the cafe where he was. And then he came to the disco. Is that what happens in life? Naomi used to think that only in love novels they wrote like that, in books or something, but it was impossible. From that moment on, the guys started dating. Naomi introduced Evan to her parents right away. After a while, Evan introduced her to his mom. Now every night they met, went for walks, went somewhere, both of them told each other different stories. "I'm leaving soon," Naomi told him one day. "Where?" He didn't understand. "To study." She laughed back. He looked so scared. "You scared him?" He waved his hand at her. "I think that this separation will not affect our relationship with you," the girl asked him. "You know, I could come with you," he said after a short pause. "That would be perfect," she smiled. After receiving her diploma, Naomi immediately applied to the institute where she wanted to go, got accepted, and first checked into the dormitory. Evan promised that when he solved all his questions, he would come to her, and then they would think about a rented apartment. Since the girl had planned to study here for a long time, she liked it, and she wanted to do it. She wasn't lazy, even when Evan came to visit during the week. They would walk around a bit so that she would have time to do whatever assignments were set. Then the young man said that he could finally stay and they could try to start living together. Naomi was both so pleased by this situation and a little saddened. She realized that if she started living an adult life, she would have less time to study, but she couldn't say no because she really liked this man. "Wow, that's a lot of work," Evan told her. She had already completed 3 years of school, and she had a practicum ahead of her. Naomi could not decide where she would go, either to her hometown or here, where she had already been offered a place. Of course, in the native walls would be very good, but since Evan had already got a job here, she thought that another separation was not necessary in her life. So she agreed to do her internship here in this city. "You decided to stay here after all," the young man told her. "Yes, what's the point of going back and forth? Now I'll get an internship, then I'll graduate, and maybe I'll get a job here too," Naomi said. When Naomi came to the school, she could not put it into words how much she liked it here, how much she liked all these children. She had memorized each one during the time that practice was going on. Naomi managed not only to make friends with these children, but also to learn a little about each one, what kind of character each one had and what kind of approach each one needed. When she entered the 4th year, she didn't want to think about anything else, only about going to work. She lived her studies and knew that everything would work out for her. When the girl was already in the 5th year, her mother suddenly came to visit her. She did this very rarely, but here the daughter saw that the woman did not have everything in order. "Mommy, what happened?" She hugged her, and at that moment she did not hold back and cried. It turned out that Naomi's father had left her for another woman. Can you imagine? Her mother looked at her with tearful eyes. "How is this possible? You always had an exemplary family," sat Naomi on a chair and took her hands on her head. "I myself never imagined that I would be alone in my old age," the woman said. She stayed at Evans with Naomi for a few days. In the meantime, the young man decided that while his future mother-in-law was here, he had to propose. He did everything correctly and beautifully. The restaurant, flowers, ring, smiles, and then the main words in Naomi's life. She thought back to her childhood dreams. In them, everything was just as Evan had done now. "Oh, children, how happy I am for you," her mother had said. Once Naomi had read a book that described a girl's wedding. It was written that she wore a light white dress, which was tied around her figure, with a hat on her head. And for some reason she visualized this image in her head so much that she couldn't think of anything else but that. "Darling, how about an ordinary classic dress?" her mother asked her. "No, I want such a dress." She drew a sketch on paper. but they couldn't find it in the stores. Then, while the girl was at school, which she was coming to the end, she passed the state examination, diploma, everything else. Her mother was looking for a seamstress to do what her daughter wanted so much. "Honey, look what I have here," stood the woman at the closet when her daughter returned from her studies. Almost everything was already turned in. There was only a little left. "Well, show me," Naomi guessed, but she had no idea it would really be so beautiful. "Close your eyes," her mother smiled. Naomi closed her eyes with her hands. She waited. She heard the closet door creak open. She took her hands away. She watched and remained silent. "Mom," she finally exhaled and walked over to her. "Everything for you, my dear." The woman realized that her daughter liked everything. When Evan came home in the evening, the bride-to-be decided not to show him the update and not to tell him, so that it would be a surprise later. They had dinner, agreed that the application would be filed now, and the wedding would be held at the end of the summer. Naomi wanted to get a job by then, and she believed that everything would work out. "As you say," the young man pressed her to himself. Mom decided to stay with the young people. She wanted to help them in everything, and as soon as they signed to leave. So far, everything in the girl's life was as she once dreamed. Study was behind her. Her beloved was near. Only happiness and nothing else. "Hello," she came to school. "Good afternoon," the headmistress looked at her. "I would like to get a job with you." Naomi smiled, because she and this woman had known each other for a long time. When the girl was interning, Beatty herself had told her that she was always welcome here. Of course, Naomi, she extended her hand and took a folder with documents. The girl was sure that she would succeed. There was not a single doubt. She was expected to work in September, and now she could get married. "Nancy, hi," Naomi called her friend. Since they'd been separated, they'd seen each other very rarely. "A friend, finally," she said. "I want to invite you to the wedding," Naomi said, and listened to her friend's reaction. "Are you going to call Natalie and Casey yourself, or should I?" Nancy asked. "No, I'll do it myself," smiled the girl. "Okay, see you later then," said the friend, and they said goodbye. After that, Evan booked the restaurant. Everything was ready. There weren't very many people at the wedding, but it was fun. Evan and Naomi were happy. Mom went home. She hated it so much, but she couldn't stay with the kids all the time, could she? "Beloved, now we have to think about the babies." Evan hugged her, burrowed into her hair, and whispered, "Beloved, wait a little while. I have to do some work," she said. "Yes, of course," he kissed her. The work was not easy. At first, Naomi, when she started working, had been kind, making concessions to everyone. But with the children she worked with, she had to be strict with them because they could be sassy. If you were nice to them, they didn't listen, they behaved badly. Naomi began to develop a strong character, a strong voice, and though she cried a lot in the evenings, she liked working at the school. "Why do you go there if you cry afterwards?" Evan said irritably. He couldn't see his wife suffering. "No, I like everything. It's just emotions I can't let out." She lifted her face and smiled. "I see it'll get you through school." Her husband didn't like the way things were going. 3 years passed. Naomi still hadn't talked about having kids, even though Evan really wanted to. "Well, wait a little longer," she told him. "How many can you do? Look at yourself." "With your school became nervous, twitchy," he told her reproachfully. "Darling, don't be nervous." She sat up to him. "Good." He kissed his wife on the neck. At work, the girl was praised, and after 7 years of her work, the director summoned her to her office. "Hello," walked an excited Naomi into her office. "Have a seat." The woman showed her to a chair. The young teacher was worried. "Naomi, would you like to be a head teacher?" the principal asked. "What?" The girl didn't expect to hear that. "Why you work? You have all the indicators on top." Saw Naomi that in the hands of the headmistress again all her documents. Good, it meant a promotion, which meant she was doing a good job. Back home today, she returned in high spirits. She and Evan had had a strained relationship for about 6 months. He could stay late at work, go out with his friends and more. The only complaint he had with his wife was that she was exhausted and worked too hard. Nauman hoped that it was just a crisis in the family life, and that soon everything would pass and it would be like before. "Evan, I'm home." She entered the apartment, but the answer was silence, as usual lately. The girl went to the kitchen. She put the kettle on, made a light salad, sat down at the table. After that, she picked up the phone to call her husband. When she opened the list of recent calls, she grinned. Why does it like this? She asked herself. Before, when she first wrote down her future husband's number, she had him listed as her favorite, then changed her phone and listed Ivan with just a name. But now the screen was simply labeled husband. Where had it all gone? Where was this great love of theirs? At that moment, he answered her. Honey, where are you? Naomi asked him. And you? I'm at home. I wanted to cry. And I'm at work, he said, because a couple of years ago, he used to come and wait for her, cook dinner, buy flowers, and his wife was gone. When he called, she said she was at work. It's late. She looked at her watch. And what Allah had piled up, he lied to her. Come, we need to talk, she asked. But he came back when Naomi was already asleep, did something briefly in the kitchen, then came into the bedroom. He took a pillow and a plate and went to sleep in the hall. Good morning, she passed him when she woke up. Morning, he squinted against the bright Keshi because Naomi had opened the curtains. We need to have a serious talk. Naomi stood over him. Good, when they walked together to the kitchen for breakfast and coffee. As they sat at the table, she stirred the sugar in her mug and looked at her husband. Why don't you tell me where you disappear for so long every day? The wife asked Ivan. You know, at work, he told her. Okay, she nodded. And what's the name of your job? What started it? He wanted to leave. No, we'll talk, as if turning on the teacher girl. If you don't believe me, it's none of my business, he told her. Evan, why is everything happening like this? What happened to our family? She looked at him, tears in her eyes. And where is it? Our family, show me. I wanted kids and you didn't. Work. So live with your work. He stood up and went to get dressed. I don't understand. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm gone, she heard from the hallway. Good, sighed the girl. She had to go to work too, so she went to her room, got ready, smiled at herself in the mirror, and left the house. You don't look so good, her colleague and friend said to her at work. Yes, my husband's having a little trouble. Naomi didn't want to talk to her. Okay, when you want to tell her, you'll tell her yourself. She didn't bother her. In the evening, when Naomi was home, it was empty again. She did everything as usual. She had to do a little work today. She sat at the table until the night before, but Evan never showed up. No matter how many times the girl called him, he was unavailable. She went to bed, and in the morning she found that he was still gone. The phone was silent too. So 3 days passed. Naomi went to work, came home, where there was still no one. Listen, maybe you should file a search warrant, her friend advised her. No, you what? And if he is just at friends or women, then everyone will laugh. Naomi did not want to do it. Fine, do what you want. Her friend didn't insist on anything. Yeah, Naomi just nodded. Listen, we want to go to a cafe this weekend. Will you come with us? Asked her friend. Oh, what are you? What about? After these words, she was silent. She even felt funny. Who live in? The woman realized what she wanted to say. Yeah, Naomi shook her head. Forget about him, he'll be back now. Give him a beating, pack his things, and put him out on the street, she said. Okay, we'll deal with it ourselves. She went to her room, and a few hours later she headed home. She walked into the apartment, saw the lights on, went into the room. Evan was sitting on the couch. Hi, Naomi said hello to him in a stern voice, showing that she was about to have a serious conversation. Well, he looked at her. Where have you been? She didn't sit down. Where I was, I'm not there anymore, grinned Evan. I see, so you won't talk. She walked to the window. Why not? I was with a woman. He stopped talking. What? She turned sharply. Naomi had assumed it, but to have it like this, he himself directly told her about it. She couldn't believe it. What she heard, I've been seeing a woman for months now. Now she seems to be expecting a baby, my baby. He emphasized the last words in his voice. Good, it became so hurtful that it seemed she was about to suffocate. She wanted to cry, but there were no tears, only a spasm squeezed her throat. Naomi went to the bedroom. She dialed the number of Ariana, the same friend and colleague from school. What's wrong? She picked up the phone. Can I come over? Naomi asked quickly. Of course, she never said no to a friend. Naomi came, told her everything. And then the tears did not wait. The way she was crying now, she had never cried before. "That's it, friend. You're definitely coming with us this weekend. You need to relax," summed up her friend. Good. Naomi didn't know what she should even do now. After work the next day, she went home again. Even though she was afraid to see Evan there was nothing to do. But he wasn't there as usual. So she opened her closet and looked at what she had to wear to go out with the girls tomorrow night. A cocktail dress was chosen, shoes. She promised Ariana that she would be beautiful and happy that day. Her husband never showed up, and on Saturday, after working all day, the girlfriends got together in the evening. "Shall we have a rest?" Ariana asked. Of course, she was exaggerating. They went to a cafe, ordered something to eat, and a glass of champagne. Everything decent. When it was late, Naomi went home. "Let's stay a little longer. Look how much fun the music is," Ariana told her. "No, I'll go." Naomi didn't want to be here anymore. She would have stayed a little longer, but her friend was always distracted by her other two friends, and Naomi wasn't interested. "Okay, can you walk alone?" Ariana asked. "Sure," the girl smiled back at her. She left the cafe, did not walk a few meters, hit the heel in the grate, which was in the ground, and almost fell. Oops, she bent her foot unnaturally. "How come?" Not carefully. Some man came up to her. "Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't know what Naomi was apologizing for." "Come on, I'll walk you out." He took her under his arm. "No need, I'll do it." She looked. There was a bench up ahead. "It's no trouble at all," the stranger mumbled. They walked a little deeper into the park and sat down on a bench. "Thank you," Naomi thought. Her house is just the other way around. "It's okay," he smiled. Only now did the girl realize that champagne they'd been drinking the evening before had given her a bit of a headache. Before that, she had thought everything was fine. "Would you like some ice cream?" The man sitting next to her suddenly asked her. Come on, Naomi thought. Why is it that her husband is allowed to find new women, while she can't even meet anyone in the park? "Here, take it." He took out a briquette from the bag. "Why don't you eat it yourself?" She took a bite of the already melting treat. "I can't. I went to the dentist this afternoon," he smiled. "Do you live in the neighborhood?" Naomi asked him. "No, I came here specifically to get my teeth fixed," he answered her. Their conversation seemed to be about nothing. In this neighborhood, the girl knew that they had the only clinic in town that was praised. Yes, he turned to her, looked at her and smiled. "What?" She didn't understand. "You got a little dirty." He moved closer to her, wanting to remove the remains of the ice cream that was over her lip. "What are you doing?" She looked at the stranger. His face was very close. "What beautiful eyes you have," he said, and at that moment he started kissing her on the lips. Naomi herself did not know what was wrong with her at that moment, always so decent and correct. Today she just gave in to a total stranger. He kissed her while unbuttoning her dress. She didn't make a sound. It just felt good. After it was over, the girl quickly got up and walked. "What have I done? What a fool." She blamed herself. "Nothing, Vanechka, to spite you. Why is it possible for some people and some not?" She came home and immediately hid in the bathroom. She wanted to wash it all away. But as the shower water poured over her, she remembered the stranger's touch, and her stomach felt heavy. Naomi shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. After that, she went to sleep. When the girl woke up in the morning, her head was cracking so hard that it felt like it was going to split. "Yes, I guess I only felt like I had a couple of drinks," Naomi said to herself, and looked in the mirror. At that moment, she remembered what had happened after she had gone home, her face flooded with color. Good thing it was a stranger and they would never, ever meet again. Today was Sunday, which meant no need to go anywhere. The girl decided to spend the whole day at home. She went to wash her face, looked at herself again, and immediately the memories of yesterday popped up in her mind. What the hell is this? She couldn't understand how she'd even gone for it. She washed her face, ate breakfast. Evan was still gone, but Naomi wasn't thinking about him today. She got comfortable on the couch, turned on the TV. There was nothing interesting there. Then the girl decided to call her friend to ask how they ended last night. At that moment, she remembered about herself again. When she imagined it, it was so embarrassing, and suddenly someone saw. But she pushed it away again and dialed Ariana's number. "Hi, how was the party last night?" she asked her friend. "Oh, and don't ask, my head hurts," I'm still in bed, she answered. I see. Take a pill, then I'll call you later, Naomi told her and hung up. Then she got up. She decided to do a little cleaning. The apartment was already clean. She just needed to dust. And that she did. She thought she should make dinner. She went to the kitchen. Naomi was waiting for something, but she didn't realize it. When it was far after lunch, she sat down in front of the TV again. It was starting some love series. She loved it. At the same time, the girl opened a news feed on the internet to find out what was going on in their city. This page was very popular and convenient. You always know what events and where they happened. What is this? She saw a picture of their neighborhood, and then there was the news text. It said that yesterday a man came to the dentist's office and was diagnosed with HIV. Everyone who had been to the dentist's office that day should be tested immediately to rule out any cases of the disease. Jesus. Naomi clamped her hand over her mouth. She remembered the stranger's words that he had come specifically to have his teeth treated. Why didn't he treat them in his city? What to do? After that, the girl had a panic attack. She thought that if the school found out something, and they were soon to have a medical examination, it would be a disgrace for the whole town. And what next? How to live with all this? Naomi got through the day, and the next day she went to the principal's office first thing in the morning. I want to quit, she said from the doorstep. She didn't understand. She looked at the employee confused. What is not clear? I divorced my husband. I want to leave, said the girl so quickly, as if something afraid. Naomi, calm down, sit down. Let's talk. Betty began to speak calmly. I'm fine. I just want to get out of here as soon as possible, she said. Okay, but maybe you can work for a month? Asked the principal. There are 2 weeks till the end of the year. I'll finish them. I won't work anymore, the girl said firmly. Okay. The one gave her a sheet and a pen for Naomi to write a statement. It was necessary to finish all the things. Naomi was afraid to meet Ariana. She didn't want to tell anyone anything, because even the closest ones could spread gossip. Now she would come straight to the first class, and as soon as the bell rang from the last class, she would leave immediately. Girlfriend, what's wrong with you? Where are you? Betty said you were leaving? Ariana called her. Yeah, sorry, I don't have time. She was just dropping the call. It was a few days before the end of the furlough period, and Evan still hadn't come home once. No matter how many times Naomi called him, he either didn't answer or just dropped the call. Then his wife decided to leave him a letter in which she wrote that she was not angry with him and wished him happiness, and also that he himself filed for divorce. She does not mind, and let them with a new girl, everything will be fine. The girl put the paper on the table. After that, she went to bed. The next day, she was leaving. Mom, hi, she came home. Naomi? She was surprised. Her daughter never came without calling. Why are you so surprised? I can't come home already? She smiled naively. No, it's okay. Come in. Took her back the woman. Before this, the daughter had not told her mother what was going on in their family. But now, when they were sitting in the kitchen, she decided to tell her everything. Mommy, I have to leave, she told her as they sat at the table drinking tea. I don't understand what happened. Everything was fine with you. The woman was surprised. Evan found someone else. They are expecting a child, and I can't cope with this situation. I decided to go away. Tears rolled from my eyes. Yes, there might have been some truth to it, but that wasn't why Naomi was crying. She would never stay here, and if the truth became known, she would be ashamed of herself in front of her mother. Oh my God, my little girl. Her mom hugged her and cried too. Listen, you remember Aunt Cindy, who lives somewhere in the South? She asked her daughter. Well, she nodded. Maybe I'll go to her place. We used to go there a lot, Naomi suggested. I don't even know. We haven't talked in so many years, the woman said. All right, I need the sea air and distance from society now, she lied. Well, maybe I should come with you, the mother asked. No, you'll be fine. I'll stay with you for a couple of days and then I'll be on my way, Naomi said in a businesslike manner. Everything was so fast and amazing, not only for the mother but also for the girl herself. Now all the evenings while she was here, they would get together with her mother, and as they had done long ago, they would watch different movies and then discuss them. The mother, in this way, wanted to distract her daughter from bad thoughts. Don't be bored, I'll be there soon, Naomi hugged her, thinking that it might not be true. Good, and you there, as you get settled, be sure to call. cried, and kissed her woman. Naomi went to the station, got on the train, drove, looked out the window, and thought that this was not the life she had dreamed of. Some women sat next to her and they chatted and laughed. And here she was. The last time she had been here was when she was still in school. For some reason, the village had seemed big to her then. And now, when the cab had brought her there, she could see that there were not so many inhabitants. "Anybody home?" She knocked on the window. The house sloped and seemed smaller than it had seemed to her before. "Come in just for fun," a woman passed by. Okay, Naomi was surprised. She went through the gate, then into the house. It didn't smell very good. "Aunt Cindy," shouted the girl. "Who is it?" she heard from the room. "It's me, Naomi. Remember, me and Grandma used to come to visit you all the time," she told her. "Oh, Naomi, come in." The girl entered the room. The woman was lying in bed. It was obvious that she was sick. Everything around her was dirty and dark. "What's wrong with you?" Naomi was amazed that she hadn't reported anything to anyone. "It's just something that happened. I came home from the hospital and I'm lying here. Neighbors go help, but still, everything is not the same," Caroline complained. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Naomi was still standing in the middle of the room. Why burden anyone with your problems? She wanted to smile, but she did it very badly. "I see. I think that you will not refuse me hospitality, and in return, I will do everything here and help you," Naomi said. "Great, stay. I won't be bored," said Caroline. From that moment, Naomi started cleaning the house. She went to the store and bought some groceries to cook something in the evening. As she walked down the street, she realized that there were only a few houses left in the village, just like the inhabitants. "Hello, why did everyone leave?" Naomi asked a woman passing by. "I don't know. They're all going to the city," she shrugged. "I see." Naomi nodded her head. It was even better for her. Less people, less gossip. "Who are you? Who are you here to see?" the local woman asked back. To Caroline, "She is sick. She needs care." Naomi caught herself thinking that she had started to lie a lot lately. "Oh, that's good. And we're all worried about her." The woman smiled. "Everything will be fine." They walked down the street together. "And why are you? Do not live there, at home," nodded her head interlocutress. "I broke up with my husband. He left. So I decided to hide somewhere to not see anyone." The girl lied again. "Oh, it's nice here," smiled the woman. "By the way, my name is Naomi." She waited for her to introduce herself. "And I'm Anna," she said in a friendly manner. "Nice to meet you." Naomi smiled back. She went to the store, bought, of course, not everything she needed, but something. "I'm back," she informed Caroline when she got to the house. She heard nothing in reply. She was frightened, but when she entered the room, she realized that her mistress was just sleeping. The girl covered her with a blanket and herself went to the kitchen. Naomi liked it here very much. She remembered from her childhood how she used to go swimming with the local kids. Now she wanted to dive into the cool water. She was alone here. No one was bothering her at all. And that was a good thing. Recently, Naomi thought about herself, her life, her health. It was sad that everything turned out this way, but there was nothing left. She didn't take any tests on purpose because she didn't even want to know that there was something wrong with her. Today and the next few days, she spent a lot of time on the beach. "Caroline, how are you?" She came to the house, which was now bright with sunlight. She was fine, she said, but she sounded like she was moaning. Great. Naomi saw her cheer up, but she realized she wasn't really. The woman was constantly on painkillers. The girl herself did not think about anything. She considered the diagnosis, which she had recently learned about, very terrible and fatal. So she thought that as long as she was given, she would spend her time here. Maybe someday she would invite her mom to visit, but that was something to think about later. For now, she needed to get the house in proper shape. She had already done it inside, but now she had to do something outside, because everything looked not very nice there either. Baba Anna. Naomi had come to the woman's house and was now calling out to her. "Yes, Naomi," she went outside. "Isn't there a couple of sturdy men who could help me?" asked the girl. "Oh, I'm not here, but you can call and they'll come," she said. But Naomi didn't want to invite anyone to the village. She decided that she would do everything in time. Now she was in no hurry. "Thank you," she went back. "Wait. Come in for a cup of tea," the woman offered her. Thank you, the girl went to her. She didn't want to talk to anyone at first, but knowing how people lived in the village, she didn't want them to say anything about her. Caroline, now I'll heat up dinner and we'll eat. Naomi thought that here she began to feel something different than before. She wanted so badly to call her friend, to tell her that she was doing well, but she didn't. She had thoughtfully changed her phone number when she left, and now no one knew where she was or how to call her. She'd also warned her mom not to give her contacts to anyone. "Oh, I feel so bad today," the woman said. Now Naomi went to the room to give the mistress a shot. "Naomi, sit down," she was breathing heavily. "What?" The woman came closer to her and sat down beside the bed. "Listen, I have no one. All my life I thought, here now, I'll earn money, and then a husband and children. But you see, as it turned out, if I'm gone, you can live in this house, I'm there." She pointed her hand to the table and stopped talking, closed her eyes. It was obvious that it was difficult for her to talk. Naomi took Naomi's injection and gave it to the woman. You could hear her feeling better. "Thank you." Cindy looked at the girl. "It's going to be okay," Naomi repeated like a mantra. "Thank you. You got here just in time," the woman said. A month passed, the second. As Naomi lived here, she liked everything, only she missed her mother very much. The girl went every day to the neighbors, which were not so many. She tried to pay attention to each of them. On some days she made pies and invited everyone to her yard. Carolina was getting worse every day. "Maybe you should go to the hospital," Naomi suggested it. "No, they wouldn't help," she coughed. "I don't know how to help you," Naomi cried every day. "You don't have to help me, just let it go." The woman stood her ground. "I just can't do that." Lately the mood was changing by the hour. "It's okay." Caroline held Naomi's hand. She was gone after 4 months of Naomi living here. "Baba Anna." Naomi came running to her in the night. "What's wrong?" She ran out of the house in a scarf. "Caroline." Naomi couldn't speak quietly. "My God." The neighbor woman understood at once. "Come on, I'm scared." She did not know what to say and how to behave at this moment. "Now run to the others." She waved her hand at her. "Okay." Naomi went to the next neighbors. As she ran, she wiped her feet so badly she couldn't get up afterward. The women did everything right. They called the paramedics. The paramedics documented everything. They didn't take the woman anywhere because it was written in her medical history that she was sick. "Everything is ready. We can bury her," Anna said sadly. "Good," agreed everyone else, and only Naomi could not come to her senses. But she gathered her thoughts, and everyone went to the cemetery. It was business as usual there. After all sat down at the table, memorialized, said a few words, and began to disperse. "And you, girl, why don't you take care of yourself?" asked Naomi Anna, who stayed here. "Don't you understand?" The girl looked at her with big eyes. "You'd have a baby under your heart," smiled Grandma Anna. "What? It can't be." Now Naomi realized why she felt so bad and her mood was changing. "It can, and indeed it can," smiled the woman. "And what to do now?" was as the frightened girl. "You what?" Baba Anna laughed. "No, sorry." Naomi realized that now she could give herself away. "You see, her husband left and left you a present," the woman said. "Yes, a present." Naomi shook her head. Now she wanted to be alone to think. "Don't be sad. We'll help you with everything," Anna said. "Forgive me, I'm tired. I need to rest and think about everything," Naomi said to her neighbor. "That's it, I understand. I'm leaving." She got up and went to the exit. And Naomi was left alone. She sat by the window and began to think about what to do and how to be further. If there really was a disease, it could be transmitted to the child. If you go to register, you have to take tests. Everything will be clear at once. "No, I will not do anything. Let everything go as it goes," she said to herself. The next day, the girl went to the city, went to the store, bought tests, and then everything that may be useful in childbirth. She realized that there would be a lot of blood, so she took gloves for her hands so as not to endanger anyone. And as for the baby, she had wanted one for a long time, and there was no way she was going to give it up now and not hurt it. Naomi had made up her mind finally. Since Grandma Anna knew about her situation, she had already told everyone the good news. When Naomi arrived from town, they were waiting for her. One brought milk, the other curd. "Here, now you need it, all your own, homemade, useful." They gave the girl all this in her hands. "Thank you." The girl was grateful. "Eat to your health," they smiled, sincerely happy for the girl. "Thank you very much," Naomi smiled, but she wanted to cry. She went back into the house. The girl realized that now, if she had a child, he would need a lot of things. She used to have some savings of her own, and Caroline gave her pension. It was enough for everything. Now they had to figure out something to earn money. There were no organizations here, except for the store, but there was a salesman. Yes, and now, when her belly starts to grow, Naomi won't be able to stand behind the counter for hours at a time. "So let's remember the youth," Naomi said to herself, and went to the room. She saw there Carolina had a lot of yarn and different material. The girl took out yarn and needles, sat down in an armchair, and began to knit. Not an hour passed, and she already had a small toy in her hands. Great. She evaluated her own work. After that, she went and sat down at the computer to sell. It is necessary to tell people that she is doing it. Naomi created a small website, advertised that she knits toys and sews to order. After that, she started making products. When Grandma Anna came to visit her and saw all this, first began to grumble that when pregnant knit is not allowed, the baby can be harmed. But Naomi did not believe in such omens. She continued, "You know what, and take my old machine, even though it is many years old, but it can still do a lot of things," said the woman. "You have no idea how you will help me." Naomi has already thought about this topic, wanted to rent somewhere. "Nothing, sew me a robe," laughed the neighbor. From that moment, the girl began to sew. She was good at it. One of the women from the village went to the market in town every day. She sold milk, cheese, and cottage cheese there. "Hello, Maria." Naomi came to her one day. Her belly was already visible. "Hi, Naomi," she greeted her. "Look what I brought you." The girl took out of the bag new curtains for the windows, a robe and pajamas for the woman's husband. "Oh, what are you doing? Why so much?" the woman asked her. "I want to ask you for a favor, and I can only pay with this," Naomi said modestly. "Ask for whatever you want." The local woman wondered, "Could you take my toys to the market? Maybe someone will buy them?" She gave the bag for the woman to look at. "Sure," smiled Maria. "Thank you. There on the tags is written my email address. Maybe someone will start to order," showed the girl to the woman. "I see your point," nodded the woman. She left the next day in the morning, and in the evening she brought Naomi the proceeds. She sold them all. "You wouldn't believe how popular they are," Maria said admiringly. "I'm so happy. Will you take more?" Naomi asked. Even though the earnings were not so big, but still, it was enough for something. After that, a good sale started. Since Naomi was alone, she didn't have time to make much. It was frustrating, but the girl tried. One evening, Anna came to Naomi's house. She entered the house and looked at the products that the girl makes for a long time. "Everything is so beautiful. People like it for a reason," she said. "Yes, thank you," was grateful to all these residents. Naomi, "Listen, my dear." The woman sat down at the table. "You're due soon, and you're not even going to the hospital. You see, I have a fear of big cities lately. I don't know, maybe it was the divorce. I had to lie to the girl again. And where are you going to give birth?" Grandma made big eyes. "Here," she showed me the place she had prepared for the birth. "What? Are you crazy?" Grandma Anna was surprised. "What's wrong? Everyone used to give birth like this." Naomi almost cried. She was waiting and afraid of this conversation. "Okay, and then what?" The woman didn't understand. "Nothing, we'll give birth, then we'll register the child, and that's it." Naomi shrugged her shoulders because she didn't know what would happen afterwards. "Okay, girl, you are risky. You need to tell Aurora what you have made up." She stood up and headed for the exit. "Thank you." The girl threw her arms around the woman. Sometimes Naomi, when she wasn't working, started to think about how and what would happen. She hadn't told her mom how surprised she would be when she found out about her grandson. And that was the worst part. Sooner or later, if she was sick, someone would find out. "Everything will be fine," Naomi said with each stitch as she knitted or sewed. It calmed her down a bit. When the girl was already in her last month, she received a letter in the mail. It was from some private store. They wanted to order from the girl a small batch of toys to try out. That day, Naomi had a feast. She made pies again, cut up salads, and invited the closest people, which was practically everyone. "I didn't think it would work out," shook her head at Maria, who was still driving and selling what the girl gave her. To be honest, I didn't really believe it myself, Naomi said quietly. Okay, it's okay. Grandma Anna stroked her arm. A week later, Naomi went into labor. She made her way to her neighbor's house and told her everything. At first she groaned, then screamed and ran to Aurora, who knew how to deliver babies. It's like a primitive system. You could have called the hospital, Aurora said. It's too late to call somewhere else, grumbled Anna. Water, the woman commanded. Here, Naomi handed her a bag containing bandages, gauze, gloves, masks, and more. What's all this for? Aurora didn't understand. Just in case, for sterility, Naomi said between contractions. Okay, Aurora and Anna put everything on. They looked ridiculous now. Oddly enough, everything went very well. The whole thing lasted about 3 hours, and here's a mother holding her newborn son. Should we call an ambulance? Aurora asked the girl. If necessary, I'll do it myself, she thanked her. Aurora left, and Anna stayed in the house for a long time. She cleaned everything, washed the floors. Now it seemed as if nothing had ever happened here. What will you name your son? The woman asked. John said, a happy Naomi. She smiled. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. She walked over and looked at the young girl and the little baby in her arms. If it wasn't for you, cried the girl. She thought to herself, if it weren't for her, then she wouldn't have been so careless in the park. There wouldn't have been all this. But on the other hand, she wouldn't have a son now either. She was so tired that, while John sniffled beside her, she dozed off too. She woke up to her son stirring. Naomi was so curious about all this, she tried to feed the baby, but there was no milk yet. The next day, the whole village came to congratulate the young girl. It was necessary to go to register the baby, but Naomi could not do it yet. Everything hurt. Do you want me to do it? Grandma Anna asked. No, now, a little step back, and I'll do everything myself. And who will let you do it? Naomi said quietly. As you know, shrugged the neighbor. For now, the girl was happy every day when she was near Stepa. She couldn't believe that such a thing had happened in her life. But it was true, so it had to be accepted. Alone, Naomi was good, but now, with a small child, knitting and sewing was possible only in those moments when John was asleep. The girl was very tired. She just fell off her feet. But there were orders, and not small. The girl had a choice. To refuse all customers and lose them forever, or a little patience and have an established base. Now the girl had to make another separate tab, which demonstrated what Naomi was sewing, because where the toys were, it was no longer relevant. What are you doing, girl? You must be exhausted already. Grandma Anna came to her once again. No, I'm fine, Naomi answered her. Why haven't you registered the baby yet? The woman asked. We'll do it, Naomi said tiredly. Look at you. Who do you look like? And let me take John for a walk, and you get some sleep, the woman said sternly. Naomi looked at her and fell asleep as she walked. That's it, no more talking, go to bed, the woman commanded. Thank you. That's all the girl said. While Baba Anna went outside, the young mistress was already asleep. She was so tired lately that she just couldn't stay on her feet anymore. Sam came home. He lived with his mom. He was fine, but he couldn't forget one thing that happened to him recently in the park of the neighboring town. Son, why are you sitting there? At least go out, the woman said to him. I don't want to, he told her. The young man worked for himself. He practically never left the house because he didn't need to. How so? I don't want to. All young guys go out, meet girls, and you are always alone, like a beggar. The woman was indignant. I like one girl, he confessed to his mother. And why don't you go out with her? Don't invite her to visit. The woman was surprised. Because I don't know her, he answered truthfully. What do you mean? The woman didn't understand. Just like that. I don't know, that's all. The young man began to feel sad. At that moment in the park, he didn't know what had gotten into him. He just wanted to kiss her, but it had gone too far. And now those eyes, the smell, the hair, everything came back to him, and he couldn't get rid of it. When a few weeks had passed since that moment, the young man decided to go to the place where he had been not so long ago and meet his mysterious stranger. He remembered that she had told him about the neighborhood where she lived. He would walk there. Then he would go to the park, sit on the same bench, waiting for her to remember and come. But it didn't happen. and the guy was bored and suffering. "Why are you like this? How long has it been?" His friend asked him. "You see, there is a girl I want to find, but I cannot," he said to his friend. "And what's the problem? The internet will help you," he replied and smiled. "You see, I don't even know her name," he still said sadly. "What do you know?" "Nothing, the city where she lives. And that's all." Sam waved his hands. Understandably, the friend asked everything he knew, wrote down, promised to think of something. But the latter couldn't do anything about it either. Naomi's social media accounts didn't list her as living in the town where they'd met Sam. And there was no other way to find her. "So friend, don't be sad. Let's go to a club or a cafe together, meet someone, get acquainted," Alex asked him. "No, I don't want to." The guy shook his head negatively. "And suddenly, you will meet her, and she is not the one you dream about. You said yourself that you saw her only a few minutes," said the comrade. "You don't understand. I feel like we have a connection," Sam told him. "Okay, you said you know what neighborhood she lives in. Maybe we'll go there and just walk through all the houses," Alex suggested. "Do you have any idea how many there are?" The young man was surprised. "Well, what do you suggest then? Imagine how many women from this city, and suddenly she was there, not a local, just like you." Could not change his friend's mind. "Alex, I don't want to talk about it." Sam didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it at all. "I see, you don't want to talk about it. Just say so," Alex told him. They talked a little more, and then Sam withdrew into himself again. He sat down at his computer every night, opened the girls from the city where they met, and just looked at them. Maybe he'd fall for her, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and Sam suffered again. "Why is she so firmly planted in my head?" he asked himself. "Son, come out." His mother came home from work. He sometimes thought she was calling him to help him with something. But no, in the corridor stood another someone's daughter. "Hello," the young man said to the girl, but he looked at his mother with judgment. "Why are you standing there? Invite Casey into the room," the woman said. "Come in." The young man couldn't tell his mother in front of the girl that she was meddling in his life. "Hi," she walked by, clearly shy. "Mom, why do you bring them here?" the guy told her. "Look, what nice girls. Why did not you want to communicate with them?" asked him a woman. "Mom." Sam looked at her indignantly, took the kettle, cups, and tea, and went to the room where Casey was waiting for him. "All right, you sit here and I'll go for a walk," the woman said. "All right," nodded Casey's head. As soon as his mother left the apartment, Sam immediately relaxed. He'd start talking and making things up so that Casey would see it all and go off on her own. "You think I like it?" She got the hint. "Then why did you come?" The young man didn't understand her. "I couldn't say no to my mom." "Neither could you." Casey rolled her eyes. At that moment, Sam realized she wasn't the good girl her mother had told him she was. "Do you want a beer?" the young man asked her. "Yeah," she nodded her head. Sam realized that at least he could talk to someone normally instead of sitting with hot tea in his hands and pretending to like everything. "You want to go out tonight?" Casey asked. "Nah, I don't want to." He turned on the TV, threw his feet up on the couch, printed out a beer. "Why, what's sitting here in this apartment, and even next to his mom?" She didn't understand. It was all temporary, he was sure of it. Once a couple of years ago, he'd set out to buy his own apartment, and he'd done it. But then his sister and her husband got into a mortgage. That's when his mother suggested renting out his apartment so she could use the money to help pay the monthly payments. Sam loved and respected his sister, so he agreed to help her. But he had a condition. As soon as he finds a girl, he moves back to this place. That's what he shared with the girl. Wow, I couldn't do that. Casey remembered her life with her parents and younger brother in the same apartment. But I could. For some reason at that very moment, the guy remembered his stranger and he felt sad again. "All right, I should probably go." Casey got up off the couch. "Okay, what do we say you don't like me?" The young man smiled. "I don't care," she shrugged. "Okay, you're normal. Don't listen to your mother," Sam advised her. "Okay, you are too, by the way." She smiled at him and walked out the doorway. After that, Sam started thinking about her again. The one he had met so suddenly and then lost as well. At that moment, his phone rang. He got distracted, answered it. It was Alex's best friend. "Are you still souring at home?" he asked him. "Yeah, My mom just brought my girlfriend over. Sam told his friend how his mom was matchmaking him. I wish I could do that, the friend envied. Want me to introduce you? The guy asked in a friendly way. Sure, can you? Alex wasn't sure about it. Wait, the young man went to the balcony. Casey just came out of the entrance. He shouted to her, asked her to wait a bit. She got curious. She stopped. That's it, friend. I'll call you back. Meet me today at 7 as usual at our place, Sam said, and hung up. He changed his clothes, went out, closed the doors, and went downstairs. Did I forget something? She looked at him. No, I just thought we could go out tonight. He walked beside her. Well, why the sudden change? She was walking beside him. Honestly? He turned to her. Yeah, she was smiling. I have a friend, Alex. He's been looking for a normal girl for a long time. I suggested he meet you, he laughed. What are you doing? She didn't understand. Thought now that I'm acting like a mother by pandering, the guy explained to her. Well, yeah, Casey agreed with him. So are you in? Sam asked cheerfully. We can, why not? If you're so fun, you're probably a friend too, she concluded. Yeah, Alex would be even more fun. They were already on their way to the cafe where their friend was supposed to join them. They arrived, sat down at the table. Sam looked at the clock. It was still half an hour before Alex was supposed to show up. The young man made an order for now. He was sure that Casey must like the comrade. When the maid arrived, he was cheerful and he liked Casey right away, especially since her best friend had recommended her. Hi, I'm Alex. He took a seat next to her. Casey, she looked over and realized that her new acquaintance hadn't fooled her. Well, you guys hang out and I should probably get going. Sam started to get ready. No, where are you going? For some reason, they started stopping him together. Sit, socialize, why you need me? Young man did not understand. Come on, really go, his friend waved his hand at him. He wanted to socialize with Casey, and he knew that if Sam stayed here, he would be sad all evening again. Sam went home. It was possible to please his mom that Casey was attached after all. Of course, that wasn't the right word for the girl, but he couldn't think of any other. I'm home, he walked into the apartment. Where's Spatachka? His mom came out. She stayed at the cafe with Alex, said the guy cheerfully. What about Alex? What about you? The mother got excited. Look, she's nice, and Alex has needed one for a long time. So I introduced them. Sam went into the room and closed the doors behind him. Good, went the woman to the kitchen. She wanted to cry. She thought that her son was not all right with the psyche. The last few months, he just sits all day at home. She tried various ways to get him to wake up, but there was nothing she could do. Friend, hello. The next day, Sam heard his friend's voice on the phone. Hey, how's it going? I was wondering. Everything is great. Casey is really very cool and good girl. We agreed to meet today, Alex said. Well, I told you so. I was happy for my friend Sam. Now Alex started dating Casey. Sometimes best friends were together. And Sam could really see that the girl was treating the young man perfectly. Birthdays, other holidays now this trio attended together, but Sam couldn't always go with the couple. Today you can't refuse to go to the restaurant with us, Alex said almost a year after he met Casey. Did you make up your mind? His friend asked him. Yes, look, he took the ring out of his pocket and showed it to his friend. Wow, and he remembered his mysterious stranger again. Stop being sad. How long can it be? So much time has passed. Are you going to suffer for the rest of your life? Said the friend seriously. Leave me alone. If it passes, you will be the first to know about it. Suddenly, I will come now to your wedding, and there's the first beauty or a great girl, said Sam. Okay, I'll wait for you at 6 o'clock at the restaurant. Just try to be late. Alex threatened with his fist. Of course I'll be there. I couldn't miss such a moment. The one who brought them together and introduced them. He came home. His mother was cooking something in the kitchen. Mammy, I have great news for you. Alex is proposing to Casey today. The young man kissed her. Come on, we should call her mother. She wiped her hands. No, you don't need to call anyone. It's a surprise, said the son, and stopped her. Well, when will you decide to do it? It's been so long and you're still a recluse. She shook her head. Oh, Mom, it's not about me now. The young man wrinkled his nose. In the evening, he was at the restaurant at the appointed time. Alex was already waiting for him. Well, are you ready? Sam asked him. I don't know. I'm very nervous, admitted the comrade. It is understandable. I hope that when I have such a situation, you will support me too. Sam looked at him. What are you talking about? Naturally, they hugged. At that moment, Casey and her parents walked into the restaurant. They approached the table. Everyone thought that today would be just an acquaintance. But when everyone was seated, Alex, in order not to drag, got down on one knee, gave his beloved a ring, and asked if she agreed to marry him. Of course, she really hadn't expected that. Sam looked at the couple. He didn't realize it could end up like this when he suggested his friend to meet Casey. That's it. Now we have to get ready for the wedding, the young man said. Keep in mind, you'll be a witness. Alex looked at him. They've been gone for a long time. The guy was surprised. Will we have them, Casey? He looked at the girl. Yes, she confirmed. And who will Casey have? Sam raised an eyebrow. The witness? She clarified. Well, not at the guy. You'll see, was all the girl replied. Okay, said the friend then. Nothing interesting happened next, so Sam sat for a while longer and started to get ready to go home. He came in. His mom was still awake. So how'd it go? She asked. Great, Mom. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow I'll tell her everything, he told her that evening. Okay, did not insist, Mother. The night passed as usual. Nothing happened. In the morning, when Sam woke up, he first sat down at the computer, did all his chores, and then went out to wash his face and have breakfast. Son, you need a suit right now, the woman said. Why, no one is wearing suits now. He didn't understand. You what? The groom will be in a suit, the bride in a beautiful dress, and you in a t-shirt and jeans. Was she in bewilderment? And why not? We don't know yet what Alex will be wearing, he mumbled, not understanding why he necessarily needs to be in this constrained garment. No, a suit is absolutely necessary. His mother shook her head. Okay, I'll go look online now, he said and stood up. Wait, she stopped him. Well, what else? He didn't want to talk about the suit anymore. Now I'll show you something, or rather someone. I have a friend who works in a small store. She found a unique supplier. The young girl sews unique things that no one else has, Mom said, and at that moment turned on her computer. Oh, Mom, come on. I'd rather do it myself, sighed Sam. He was already tired of her hyper-parenting. No, you just look, and maybe you'll like it. At that moment, the computer turned on. The woman entered the site, and Sam couldn't believe his eyes. His so mysterious stranger from the park was looking at him from the monitor. Wait, he walked over and sat down in a chair. There, what did I say? Wait, I'll show you what she's doing. The woman leaned over and wanted to do something. Please, the young man looked at her. Okay, you wanted to do it yourself. Look, she didn't mind. The main thing was that he was interested. It was some kind of miracle. He couldn't believe it was her. Why did it happen? When he'd been looking for her for so long, his mother just knew about her. Sam still couldn't believe it. He was looking for some kind of trick, wondering if it wasn't her, but just a girl who looked like her. But no, it was the girl who had once twisted her leg, and they had gone to the park with her. The young man copied the address of her page, threw it to himself, and immediately went to his room. Hello, he wrote to her in private messages. After he sent it all, after every second he checked whether she had read it or not. Good afternoon. The reply didn't come until an hour and a half later. In that time, Sam was all exhausted. He wondered if it was a fake site. I would like to order a costume from you. I will be a witness at the best friend, he wrote her. Before that, the young man thought about whether to tell her or not, and then decided that she would take him for a madman, did not. Sure, now I'll drop you where you need to take the measurements and the fabric you can choose, wrote him a seamstress. Great, I'm waiting. His hands were shaking. He was so anxious he was even sweating. When the message came back from her, Sam went to his mother. Mom, urgently need a centimeter tape to take measurements, he spoke quickly. Wow, a minute ago he didn't want anything and now he already needs to take measurements, she was surprised. Can you make things quicker, he asked her. Sure now, the woman opened the dresser and started looking. She pulled out everything she needed, wrote down on paper what she was measuring, and then started twisting her son this way and that. When everything was ready, he grabbed the paper and went to the computer to rewrite everything. The mother was surprised at this quickness. I'm all done, I'm sending it. He wrote and sent all the numbers and the kind of fabric he liked. It wasn't really like that. Sam had picked the first one he saw. He just wanted her to answer him quickly. "Okay, I'll take a look and text you if it's not clear," was all she said. "Okay, I'm waiting." He pressed the send button. There was so much excitement inside that he couldn't even breathe. The next moment, the guy grabbed his phone. He wanted to call his friend to share his joy with him. "Alex, hi." He spoke quickly and loudly. "Sam, I can't talk yet," quickly muttered the friend. "Too bad," sighed the man and hung up the phone. He couldn't sit or stand or do anything else. He wanted to sit at the computer, to write to her. Sam knew now that the girl's name was Naomi, and that was fine. Today, he'd been in a rut all day. His mother had said something, someone had called, but he hadn't picked up the phone. The guy just imagined how he would come to her, because the city where she lived was only a few kilometers away. "Hello." He heard one thin peak in the morning and immediately jumped up. He knew she was writing. "Good morning." It didn't take a second for him to reply. "I looked it up and made the cutouts." Naomi texted him. "That's great. Maybe I can come over for a fitting," he asked the girl. "Usually, if all the measurements are correct, there is no need for a fitting," she replied. "But I still want to come," Sam insisted. "No, that's not an option. I live very far away from you," she refused. "I don't get it. I thought it was in a neighboring town," she stated. "No, that's outdated information. I'm in the South now," she clarified. "I don't care. I'll come get the suit myself." Sam was not only persistent, but as brash as it might seem. "Goodbye." She sent the message and exited the chat room. Sam got up from his desk, grabbed his phone, and drove to his friend's house. He didn't realize what he should do now. He knew the girl's name and the approximate region where she lived. That's what he told Alex. "You know what you're talking about. If before we didn't know the name, but only the neighborhood and at least the city. Now we know the name and the whole South. Do you realize what you're talking about?" "Alex, there she is. I found her. She's practically already met me," Sam said. "Well, I don't know. Offer her double the price and tell her you'll be there in the near future." Shrugged and suggested a friend. "Great idea." He said goodbye to his friend and went home. When he got there, he sat down again at the computer. He saw that the girl was not online, but he wrote to her anyway. "Naomi, hello. I need this suit very urgently. My friend is getting married. The wedding is in a couple of days. We just can't wait for it to arrive in the mail. If you want, I can offer double the price," he wrote to her. He sat at the monitor, waiting for her to at least read his messages. But an hour, 2, 3 passed, and the message still hung there unread. He went and laid down on the couch. If she wrote him the address now, he would get off his seat and go to her. It didn't matter what transportation it was, plane, train, car. He would do anything to meet her. "Sam, let's go to dinner," his mother called him. Okay, he got up and realized that he hadn't eaten anything since morning. The young man went to the kitchen. Even though he was hungry, he didn't eat like he always did. "What's wrong?" Mom asked. "I'll tell you later, if everything works out," answered her son with some riddles. "Something with work?" She began to guess. "No, Mom, you can't guess." Sam wanted to eat and go back to his room. "Okay, you don't have to say it." The woman pretended to be offended. "Mom, it's okay." Her son came up to her and hugged her. He realized he couldn't tell her anything yet. When Sam got to his room, he saw that not only had the message been read, but there was a reply. He quickly sat down at the table. "Well, if you need it so urgently, you can come over," Naomi wrote. And these were the cherished words that the guy had been waiting for. "Write your address," he wrote it. And now the seconds stretched like hours as he waited for her to reply. And lo and behold, at the top of the screen he saw running dots. That meant the girl was writing. Sam crossed his fingers. And the next moment the address popped up on the screen, with the neighborhood, city, street, and house. How happy the young man was now. "Alex, I found her." Without greeting or any introductions, Sam told his friend. "Great. You remember that the wedding is in a month. Will you have time?" reminded his friend. "Of course, and I won't be there alone." The young man was sure. "Wow, you're so confident," his friend marveled. "It's okay." Sam didn't want to talk anymore. "Okay, friend, I wish you good luck. Fly to your favorite stranger, and then I'll wait for you at my party." Alex wanted to say goodbye. "Her name is Naomi," Sam said. "Great," answered the friend. After that, the young man ordered plane tickets. He was ready even to refuse her just to see her again. "Are you going somewhere?" Sam's mother asked him. "Of course I have to pick up my suit," he didn't tell her. It was only a day away, but the day didn't want to end. There was nothing Sam could do. In the morning, he wanted to do things to make the time pass faster, but that wasn't the case. The minutes dragged on, they added up to hours, but even after that it was very long. "Mom, I'm off." He picked up his bag when it was 6 hours before the flight. "Good luck. I don't know why you're so worried, but I wish you a good flight," she hugged her son. "You have no idea what awaits you if everything works out well." He was confusing her again. "Okay," she pressed her lips together, realizing her son was up to something. Sam was on his way to his favorite stranger. He called her that in his head, even though he knew her name and where she lived. He got on the plane, and in a couple of hours he was going to land in the place where his happiness and love might live. And again time, which in no way wanted to move. And then the young man fell asleep, and he dreamed of her, so tender and beautiful. At the airport, he took the cab. It did not matter how much it cost. He was going to meet his destiny. Naomi was in the yard at that moment. She was doing something. John was sleeping in a stroller. Grandma Anna came in to see her. "Well, how are you?" she asked the girl. "Everything is fine," she shrugged her shoulders. "Any orders?" The woman knew all about it. "Yes, one should come today for a suit," Naomi said. "How to come? You usually by mail?" Anna was surprised. "Yes, but this one insisted, promised double the price." She looked up at the woman. "Wow, so you liked it a lot," concluded the grandmother. Probably didn't know Naomi. She was so tired during all this time that already, and could not speak on any subject. If it had been up to her, she would have given up a long time ago. But she had a child growing up, so there was nothing she could do. Naomi sighed heavily and continued to sit and watch her son sleep. Naomi heard a car pull up to the gate. She realized that other than a guest who needed a suit urgently, no one could have arrived. Naomi went into the house to retrieve what she had made. She took the roll, and as she was walking out, she heard a car pull away. "I don't get it," she said, and walked faster to the gate to see what was going on. Sam, on the other hand, let go of the cab driver at that moment, got out of the car, and with quick steps also walked to the gate. He stood in front of it and waited to be opened. Naomi opened it. At first she didn't notice him, and when she saw him, she immediately began to resent him. "Young man, what kind of joke is this? Why did you let the car go? Here it is later." She stopped talking and stared at him. "Naomi, hi," Sam smiled. "This can't be happening." She dropped the suit roll out of her hands. "Why can't it be? I've been looking everywhere for you." He took her by the arms, and no one cared about the suit bag. "Who are you?" she cried, at which point the young man pulled her close to him. "My name is Sam. I purposely did not tell you anything when we corresponded with you. I wanted to come," he explained to the girl. "Let's go inside," she said, as if something was about to happen. "Okay," he followed her. "You were looking for me on purpose. I'm not going anywhere, and I won't take any tests," she told him. "What do you mean?" The young man didn't understand. "About your illness. I realized that just like that you would not look for me, and so insist on coming for the suit." She did not look at him. "What sickness?" He got up from the chair he was sitting in. "Are you going to fake it now?" She looked at him as if she wanted to destroy him with one look. Naomi explained, "I don't understand anything." He approached her. "No need to. I already succumbed to your charms once." She tried to remove his hands. "I don't understand anything. Tell me everything. It seems to me that it's not enough that you and I didn't know each other. So you're accusing me of something else." He looked at her, and the girl saw that the guy really didn't understand what she was saying. Then in the park, she stopped talking and turned away because she felt ashamed again, even though it had been so long. Well, what then in the park? He remembered that, and further, what she was accusing him of, it was unclear. And then she sobbed. "So everything, I do not understand anything. We will now sit down, and you will tell me everything in order." He pulled her behind him and put her not on a chair, but on his lap. "You really don't know anything." She couldn't believe it. Naomi, when she saw him at her gate, had thought he had been diagnosed with an illness, and now he needed to bring his partner to get tested too. That's why she was acting like this now. "I'm listening to you carefully," muttered Sam calmly. "Okay." Then on the bench, She didn't have time to finish, he interrupted her. I remember that, and I've heard it more than once today. He wanted more than that. They never saw each other once after that, neither he nor she. They didn't know each other's names. What could be the complaints? So you told me that night that you were in our neighborhood at the dentist. She looked at him. I had been. He remembered those words, but he didn't know what she was getting at. The next day, they called everyone there for dental treatment because she couldn't say why. Well, he waited. They found HIV. They had to take tests. She finished her sentence. So what next? He still didn't understand what story she was telling him. You don't understand. There was a sick person there, and you were treating teeth. She didn't finish. She thought he would understand. You thought I was in that clinic and you were infected. He finally got it. Why not? She was sitting with her back to him. Yes, I was in that clinic, but not on that day, but before that. And in fact, if that was the case, I would have been called. You leak contacts there. He pressed her against him and laughed. What you mean? She turned to him. Yep, he nodded, not yet knowing what she had done to cover it all up. Here I am. She covered her eyes with her hands. Uncomprehending, he turned her towards him and took her hands away from her face. You have no idea. And she told him how she had written a letter to her husband, how she had come here, looked after her aunt. Well, you have no idea. The young man didn't know what to say. Wait, she pulled away from him. What? He didn't understand how that could even happen in life. My God, she cried. At that moment, the doors opened and Baba Anna entered the house. Naomi, he's awake, he's hungry, she said. Let him hear. Got up from the lad's knees, the girl, and went towards the woman. Yeah, she left and came back a minute later with a baby in her arms. Sam watched all this action and thought he was too late. His beloved stranger was already married and had a child. He even got up and went into the kitchen so as not to disturb her feeding. After that, he stood and thought what to do now. Apparently, he really let the cab go for nothing. Naomi came out to him a few minutes later. She looked at the young man and smiled. You know what they say about coincidences not being random. She couldn't stop smiling. I don't get it. He stared at her. Today in this house, whatever sentence was a mystery to him. It's your son. She lowered her gaze. What do you mean? He furrowed his brow. Now the worst thoughts of the one he had idolized in his head for so long came to mind. Like this, she spread her hands. Then the girl knit him by the arm and led him to the table. There she sat him down, told him how and what, about her husband, about the meeting, how she had decided to take revenge. And that's how it turned out. If it wasn't for that story, she'd probably still be living with the guy who cheated on her. Why didn't you get tested? Sam asked her an elementary question. I worked in a school. It's a small town. I didn't need to explain further. Oh, you poor thing. Why did you leave so quickly? If I'd known your name, I would have found you by now. He hugged her again. Sam, what are we gonna do? She asked him that question, and then she pulled away. What are you doing? He didn't understand her again. I said we, although I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence again today. She looked at him fearfully. What are you talking about? How many months I've been looking for you. My friends helped me. I know all the girls in the city by sight. He did not deceive her. Do you know how afraid I was of this disease that I still have not registered John? The girl confessed to him. That's great, but now he will have a normal middle name, smiled the young man. I'm afraid not if Evan hasn't divorced me. She lowered her gaze again. That's okay. Know that you'll be fine from now on. Sam pulled her close again. Have you been thinking about me? She couldn't believe that everything that was happening right now was true. You have no idea how. He wouldn't let her go. I couldn't stop thinking about you at first either. I've always been modest. I've never done anything like that. I've never even kissed in public, she confessed to him. Well, we were not in public. He remembered how she had an ice cream over her lip, which he wanted to remove, leaned over and kissed the girl. At that moment, Anna entered the house again. She looked at the young people and could not understand anything. Is your husband yours? She asked, pointing at Sam. No, but she looked up at him. I'll be there soon. He turned to his grandmother and smiled. Great. Get her out of this neck of the woods. The girl has talent and she buried it here. The woman stopped talking. Do you want something else? He realized that there was a continuation in this tirade. Will you accept her, son? Baba Anna let her eyes go. He's mine, Sam said calmly, not doubting it. What do you mean? The woman turned to Naomi. I'll tell you later, the girl promised, though she knew she never would. All right, stay. The grandmother waved her hand at them and left the house. Are you coming with me? He asked the girl. Where to? She wondered. To where I live, he said calmly. I don't know. She turned to the bed where her son was sleeping. Naomi, this can't be happening. I've been coming to this for so long. He snuggled into her shoulder. Okay, I promise to think about it, she said. Okay, I have a friend's wedding coming up. I ordered you a suit. That's the only reason I found you. In fact, you could say it was my mother who showed you to me. He sat back and smiled. Oh, it wasn't on purpose, she sighed. Of course, I just saw you. I decided to meet you by any means necessary. He pulled her to him again and hugged her. Sam, she just looked at him and couldn't believe that this was how life worked. Once again, the girl remembered all the books and movies she had ever read or watched, and it was all just there. Are you with me? He asked her the question again. Yes, she nodded. What did she have to lose? After all, she'd been through so much before. Now that she knew for sure she had no diagnosis, she could do anything. Then a couple days here and we'll go to my place. He was happy. I agree. By now she was already snuggling up to him herself. She had missed a strong male shoulder for so long. That's great. You can't imagine how happy my mom will be. They lay in bed in the evening. I'm a little embarrassed, she said it, but she remembered that night in the park. She didn't think about it then. Everything will work out. You will meet my friend, his future wife. We will be family friends, he said, and imagined how Alex will be surprised when he realizes that everything he said is true. The next day, Naomi told Sam that it was necessary to say goodbye to the neighbors. He didn't mind, even talked Maria's husband into going into town and shopping there. Everything was going great so far. You know I own this house, Naomi asked. How would I know that? He looked at her surprised. Well, you should know, she kissed the young man. It's good. We'll hire a crew. They'll do everything, and we'll have a cottage in the south. He hugged her. The most amazing thing began to happen next. When Sam took the plane tickets, Naomi realized that they were going to a city that was very close to where she was born and her mother lived. They got on the plane, flew. The girl was silent. They landed. John was nervous the whole way, probably because of his mother, because she had the same attitude. Let's go, we should be met. Sam looked to see where Alex's car was. They pulled up, loaded their things into the trunk, drove off. Almost the whole way Naomi was silent. She just didn't know what to say. But when they pulled into her hometown, she couldn't believe it. Let's go to our place. The girls will get acquainted right away, Alex suggested. No, I have to go home first, Naomi said. My place? Sam turned to her. No, to your place, she smiled. I don't get it. He was very surprised. Sam, this is the town where I was born and lived until I left with my husband to where we met, she began to explain to him. I mean, we've always lived in such close proximity, and he smiled. Apparently, she was happy. Alex drove them to the house where Naomi's mother lived. They got out with all their things there. Are you with me? She turned to him. Of course, I have to see my future mother-in-law and meet her. He took the luggage and they went. When the mother opened the doors, she looked at her daughter and the young man. She was just in shock. Mamia, I'm sorry I was gone so long. They entered the apartment. Daughter. She hugged her and started kissing her. Meet your grandson, John, and this is Sam. The girl looked at the woman. Naomi. She couldn't help herself and cried. It's okay, they passed. The woman kept the baby in her arms. She just couldn't believe that her daughter had lived alone somewhere, had given birth, and hadn't even told her about it. I believe everything's gonna be okay now, the woman said. All right, ladies, get ready. My mom's worried too, Sam told them. Yes, now, no one argued with him anymore. They got into a cab and drove to where the young man lived. When they got upstairs and a woman opened the door, for a few seconds everyone just stood there looking at each other. Mom, are we just going to stand on the doorstep like this? Sam asked her. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused. The woman let them into the apartment. Mommy, meet Naomi. This is Naomi, your future daughter-in-law. This is John, your grandson, and this is Naomi's mother. The young man introduced everyone. How's that? The landlady didn't understand. Sometimes life is unpredictable and anything can happen, smiled the son. They all sat down at the table. When they started the conversation, it seemed it would never end. Sam's mother and Naomi stayed home. John was asleep, so they left him for a while too. And the young ones went to Alex and his fiancee's house. "Do you think your friends will accept me?" Naomi asked the young man. "Why shouldn't they accept you? You're with me and I'm the best friend." He didn't understand. "Well, things happen," she smiled at him. "Yes, I know that." He kissed her for the umpteenth time. They stopped at the entrance, got out of the car, thanked the cab driver. At that moment, Naomi saw a familiar figure. Nancy. She was happy to see her childhood friend on the bench. "Naomi, what are you doing here?" She was surprised too. "Here, meet Sam." "This is Sam. We're here to meet his friend," the girl said. "Nice to meet you, Nancy." The girl looked at him. "Okay, we're off," said Naomi. "I'm in this entryway too. Let's go together." Nancy didn't want to let them go. They entered, went up to the second floor. Sam went to the door. Nancy rushed there as well. "Are you going to this apartment too?" She looked surprised. "Yes," Sam nodded. "Naomi, it's Sveka who's getting married," Nancy announced excitedly. "It can't be." Turned to the young man. He was silent. They entered the apartment. On the threshold, they were met by the owner in an embrace with his future bride. "Casey." Naomi threw herself into her arms. "How was that possible?" Sam stood there looking at them. "What do you mean?" The girls didn't understand. "I've been looking for her for so long, and you were just there to tell me at least about my mom." Sam looked at Casey. "So you didn't even know her name?" Alex interrupted him. "That's right." The young man agreed with them. The young men all made their way into the room. They sat around the table and couldn't get enough of talking. "Nancy, will you mind if I make Naomi my witness?" Casey asked the girl. "Of course not. If he's the witness," she pointed to Sam, "I'll concede." That was the deal. They sat for a while longer and then separated. "I don't believe it's real," Naomi said. "Well, you can see that things have happened in your life." He wouldn't let her go, as if he was afraid of losing her again. "You're not letting me go to my mom's tonight," Naomi guessed. "I'm not letting you go anywhere else at all." He pulled her in and held her tight against him. They returned, the women still in the apartment where Sam lived. They told about the girlfriends. Naomi's mom was just shocked. And then the girl told about the cabin in the south. The moms immediately said that after the wedding they would go there and clean it up. "Are we having a wedding?" The girl smiled and looked at Sam. "If you don't mind, I'm all for it." He kissed her again and again. "I first need to know if I'm divorced or not." Naomi looked at her mother. "Divorced? The papers came long ago," she confirmed. "All right, I just have to register John," Naomi said sadly. "Why so sad?" Sam didn't understand. "I don't know, it's just," she shrugged. After that, the young man pulled her into his room. There he told her about the apartment, but if her mother was going to leave, there was no hurry. "Shall we just sign?" Naomi asked. "Are you okay with that?" He was embarrassed. Only now he thought he could have come with a ring. "Yes," she turned to him, wrapped her arms around him and pressed herself against him. "You're my one and only love for life." That's how coincidences happen. Sam didn't believe in his happiness.